Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our first meeting in April. Madam Clerk, could you please read the adequate notice of compliance statement?
Of course. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by the City Clerk's office in preparation of the Council Annual Meeting Notice dated April 1st, 2021, which was properly distributed and posted per statutory requirements.
Thank you. And can we please have the roll call?
Ms. Allen?
Here.
Ms. Hairston?
Here.
Ms. Little?
Here.
Mr. Naidu?
Here.
Mr. O'Sullivan?
Here.
Mr. Vartan?
Present.
And President Fox.
Here. Okay, moving on to the Pledge of Allegiance. If everyone could stand, and we'll do the pledge together. I pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Madam Clerk, could you please read the notices concerning closed session and hearings and comments?
Yes. A closed session meeting, as authorized by state statute, was announced and held prior to the start of this meeting, and the known items for discussion were listed on the published closed session agenda. Please be advised that council meetings are broadcast live on Comcast Channel 36 and Verizon Channel 30, and rebroadcast on Thursdays and Saturdays on HTTV on Comcast 36 and Verizon 33. This meeting is also streaming live through YouTube. To view this meeting via YouTube, please visit the city's website at cityofsummit.org and click on the YouTube icon at the top of the homepage. While this council meeting is being broadcast live and members of the governing body are participating remotely, steps have been put in place to accommodate public input during this meeting through public notice, dated April 1st, 2021, which provided information for those wishing to participate during public comment periods at this council meeting. The City Clerk's office also provided, through public notice, instructions on how the public could submit a question or comment via email or regular first-class mail in advance of the meeting. Public comment will be permitted at specific times as outlined in the agenda. Please refrain from commenting until solicited by the council president. For those members of the public who wish to make a comment during a designated public comment period, please use the raise hand feature and you will be called upon by the council president. Unless you are using an electronic device to follow the meeting agenda or need it for professional emergency contact purposes, please turn it off. And lastly, we ask that all participants remain on mute unless called upon to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And now we're moving on to approval of minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the regular and closed session minutes of March 16th?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay,
Aye.
motion carries. Moving on to reports. Our first report is from our mayor. Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Council President. Good evening, everyone. I have some information on 3 current Summit Police Department initiatives. The Summit Police Department is participating in New Jersey's enforcement and awareness campaign titled You Drive, You Text, You Pay during the month of April 2021. The initiative will target motorists who engage in dangerous, distracted driving behaviors such as talking on handheld cell phones and sending text messages while driving. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration reported that in 2018, there were 2,841 people killed in distracted driving crashes, and an estimated 40,000 people were injured. In 2018, driver inattention was listed as a contributing circumstance in 50% of the crashes. Secondly, the Summit Police Department is also working to reduce careless driving through its new 2 Streets a Week campaign. This program will coordinate enforcement efforts and establish an ongoing police presence to decrease speeding and other dangerous traffic violations. And thirdly, the new Summit Citizen Eye campaign will create a voluntary registry of privately owned video surveillance systems that will provide Summit Police with a map of where cameras are located in Summit. This will allow detectives to quickly identify cameras that may have captured criminal activity. If you want to participate in this voluntary program, and I stress a voluntary program, you can register at cityofsummit.org/police. And more information on all 3 initiatives is available there as well. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And moving on to our City Administrator's report, Michael Rogers.
Thank you, Council President. Good evening, everyone. Given public health has been on everyone's mind this past year, I just wanted to bring this to your attention that from yesterday to April 11th is National Public Health Week. The theme is Building Bridges to Better Health. The COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic has certainly emphasized the need to prioritize the health and safety of our community. And I thank everyone who has done their part to protect the health of our Summit residents during this prolonged pandemic, particularly the Westfield Regional Health Department. For more information on National Public Health Week, please go to nphw.org. And then just the last thing I have is I just want to let everyone, remind everyone that at the next council meeting, April 20th, I will be presenting the city's municipal 2021 budget. It is the most anticipated event of the year, so please gather the family and drink a lot of coffee during the presentation. But that is all I have for this evening, Council President. Thank you.
Thank you. And just a couple of items for the Council President's report. The first one is Earth Day 2021. Summit will be celebrating Earth Day with this annual cleanup on Saturday, April 10th from 9 a.m. to noon. Because of COVID-19 restrictions, there will be no walk-in sites. If you're interested in participating, please email summitearthday.cleanup@gmail.com to sign up for more information. We look forward to next year and more opportunities for community participation. And secondly, Summit was recently accepted by AARP as one of 516 communities in its network of age-friendly states and communities. Summit is the 16th age-friendly community in New Jersey and the 2nd in Union County. And acceptance into the network will provide increased resources for seniors and opportunities to partner and share knowledge with other communities nearby. I want to thank Tracy Keegan and the other members of the Silver Summit Committee for applying for this designation and for all their work to improve the lives of seniors here in Summit. And this will be an ongoing effort where we will be looking at initiatives, and we also are looking for volunteers who want to work on the Silver Summit Committee, and you can find more information on the city's website. So that's it for the Council President report, and we are now moving on to the presentation. We have Nancy Adams, the Executive Director of Summit Downtown Inc., and Claire Toth, who I believe is the Treasurer. Is that correct, Claire? Who will be speaking to us about Summit Downtown Inc. and the initiatives of the past year. And we thank you both for being here tonight.
Thank you, Marjorie. Can you, you guys can see me. I just jumped off one Zoom and into another, and I'll be jumping back. So thank you so much for the opportunity. And for Claire is indeed our board treasurer, our organization treasurer, and does an amazing job. And she's actually here about our budget, but also to pinch hit in case I couldn't make it over here. So I'm going to share my screen. Council President asked that we bring a little presentation since our budget's being discussed that to kind of talk about what Summit Downtown did for the year 2020. And if everyone can see that, I'll just hopefully proceed successfully. We'll see how this works. Hold on one sec. Whoops. My apologies, hold on.
Whoa.
Oops, I shrunk me, sorry. I'm gonna go back. I want you guys to all see each other. Hold on. It's hard because I'm literally accessing my work computer from my home computer and trying to share everything. So
I've got it. I could run it as a slideshow if you like.
yeah, that'd be great. It'd probably be easier that way.
Okay.
I'm working through 2 or 3 computers. You're only working.
That's okay. I'm on this one. Okay. Does that work for us?
That's great. That's great. And you can go to the next one. So we have
well, that means I have to get to it.
exactly what happened to me. So maybe it's not so.
No, here we are. Wrong one. There. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, well, either one works as long as you can press up and down or resume the slideshow, whatever you want to do.
Okay, here we are.
Great. So,
Okay.
yeah, so Summit Downtown, like everybody else, had a really different year in 2020. The unprecedented challenges that all of us experienced. I think Summit Downtown's board and staff, we pivoted, we rose to the challenge, and we worked hand in hand with the city of Summit to try to make changes as everybody did. And I don't think I need to go into all those details just in the intro. So normally our mission is to manage the downtown district, and we work to help the businesses that are there with business assistance, and we also do business recruitment. We create events and marketing and to bring people to town and to create the hometown atmosphere that is for the residents of Summit, and also to make it a destination for other people to come to support the economy of the business community. So this year we had to change much of what we could do, but we pivoted and spent the budget funds on different initiatives than usual. So go ahead, Claire. Mm-hmm. So as I said, we didn't work alone. SDI worked with City of Summit's elected officials and department heads to do what had to be done to help the businesses by quickly creating and approving, along with you guys, the 7 new parklets to allow for more outdoor dining, which is, a lot faster than the pilot parklet on Springfield Avenue went through. We work together with the city to expand outdoor dining. So now is permitted year round. They still have to renew their permit every year, but instead of a seasonal permit, when it's 80 degrees in January, they can have tables outside. But more importantly, during a pandemic, they can have tables outside. So we also worked together to close Maple Street, figure out those logistics, and work with the restaurants over there who didn't really have on-street parking to expand parklets into. So this became something that the city and SDI worked on, and has been very positively received by the community for sure, and really helped to save these restaurants and allow them the opportunity to pay the rent and employ people. So that was good. We also worked with Summit Police on the Wear a Mask Downtown program. SDI donated $5 and $10 Summit Visa gift cards for the police to give out as positive incentives to kids who were wearing masks, in the hopes that more people would wear masks downtown. We partnered with the city, the mayor in particular was instrumental in this, and the Summit Foundation on the Sustained Summit Grant Program. Together, we raised over $350,000 to give grants to small business owners citywide, matched by a very generous Summit resident couple who wanted to give back to the city and to the businesses. We gave another round of larger grants in the Jumpstart Summit program as well. So this was a huge help to the businesses, not only for their financial well-being, but for their morale during this devastating year. We also gave other grants. We applied for and received a $120,000 grant from the state Main Street program that was funded by the CARES Fund. And that enabled us, and a little bit of balance left in the Sustained Summit Fund, to give $1,000 grants across the board to all those small businesses who had applied for the other Sustained Summit grants. So that was another boost, and it happened to come in December, which was really helpful for them to be able to buy stock, basically, and to buy merchandise for their stores during the holidays. And then 2 times last year, SDI sent $100 gift cards so that the downtown businesses could either spend them at their own business, or better yet, they were supporting their fellow downtown businesses by spending it there. And another big morale booster. We did a lot of communication to businesses and customers via e-newsletters, emails, and social media. We regularly communicated to the businesses to update them on all the ever-changing operational rules by the state, the county, and the city, such as closures, rules for retail and food businesses, occupancy levels, and those types of things. As we also let them know, as you can see from this social media post, about grants that were available to the businesses through the county. And then on behalf of the businesses, we communicated a lot, again, with we have very active social media. Our assistant director, Amanda Lynn, and our part-time marketing admin, Jane Doveton, do an amazing job in not only promoting Summit as a whole, but also through our social media, as you can see, helping explain to the community that Mondo is doing curbside and doorstep delivery, or Hera Jewelers is doing, personalized shopping and via FaceTime and all that kind of stuff. And also for the restaurants that were listed. So we were constantly just letting the public know how they could support downtown businesses. The farmers market, we had, luckily it was declared an essential business. This not only helped the almost 40 vendors that we typically have at the farmers market, but brought a sense of normalcy to the community, and enabled the residents in and outside of Summit to get fresh produce and all the wonderful offerings at the market. So we had to pivot. We worked with parking services and city officials to make these important changes in order to open the market. It moved from DeForest Park and Shop lot number 2 to larger lot number 1 at the corner of Maple and Woodland, to enable us to spread out the vendors so the shoppers could follow social distancing guidelines. DPW installed snow fencing around the lot so that we could control the entrance and exit of the patrons, so that we also had a staff person that we hired to put at the entry to make sure people were wearing masks when they came in, and also to limit the attendance all in the lot at one time, and kind of evolved over the season, but we did need to staff the entrance every week. So it had less than usual attendance, some because people didn't feel safe, and others because it just was. So normally we have an amazing 4,000 people on an average week to the farmers market between 8 and 1. And it was more like 2,500, 3,000, and probably started to grow toward the end of the season as people started to feel more comfortable. So we were able to safely run it. And that was definitely a partnership. And as you can see, we did a layout. We not only changed the layout, but we changed this layout to scrunch together those 2 rows to, it was like basically a weekly thing of, well, this didn't work, so we have to do this. We wanted to make sure all the vendors were visible and that people walked by all the vendors. So now those 2 middle rows, that aisle is gone, and those vendors are sort of back to back. So people have to go past everybody in the market, even if they're going in a one-way direction, which keeps the vendors happy, keeps the people happy because they can get to the ones they want. And so we had to play with circulation, obviously. We also purchased 1,000 reusable shopping bags that we gave away to shoppers at the farmers market. This was not only a continuation of the green initiatives that we've been doing related to the market, but a way to help people get their groceries using these bags and to limit contact with the vendors. And because it was so successful in Lot 1, the city has approved us to move it there permanently. So that's where it'll be for this year and the foreseeable future. This allows us to keep the COVID restrictions in effect for this year for as long as we have to. And then also is already allowing us to add some more vendors to the popular farmers market. So we also created atmosphere downtown. SDI invested in market string lights that we installed along Maple, Beechwood, and Union Place. They were so well received, we later installed them along Springfield Avenue as well. It really adds a welcoming feeling, creates an atmosphere for the outdoor dining, for our events, and for strolling. So we're planning on continuing them until further notice. And as you can see, it just kind of, it did what it did, like what I just said.
I've also got to say, if you come really early in the morning, particularly in the winter when the sun is rising and they're still out, it looks magic.
Yeah, that's cool. So for marketing, we pivoted on events. We couldn't do some of the events we had planned, like Family Fun Night, which unfortunately we were also not able to put on this year. Hopefully it'll come back next year. But to further support the downtown businesses, we increased marketing by having virtual contests or virtual events. This is See Something in Summit, where we took pictures around downtown and posted them on social media, and people had to guess where it was. And then we gave out Summit Visa gift cards. So this kept people engaged with downtown. You can go to the next one too, Claire. This was another virtual event, Support Something in Summit, where people, as we started to reopen, we asked people to take pictures of their experience at downtown businesses while they were reopening and put them on social media and tag us and all that stuff, so we could have other people help us get the word out that the businesses were gradually reopening. We expanded Summit Street Sounds. We introduced Summit Street Sounds in summer of 2018. It's, as you've all undoubtedly experienced, we have live music at 5 or 6 different locations throughout downtown Summit. And this year in particular, this was one where it wasn't gathering people in one spot, and we could keep the musicians away from the people. So we were able to do it safely. And it was just a real boost for everybody, not just the businesses, but the residents and visitors. It just made everybody feel better, and it adds to that atmosphere that we created with the lights. So we also partnered with Summit Public Art and the Summit House to have muralist Kelsey Montague paint a What Lifts You interactive mural on the alley side wall of the new Barbacoa on Maple Street. So we've witnessed hundreds of people making those tags of What Lifts You and posing with this in the middle of those wings that she's famous for. This will continue to be an attraction outside of COVID. And it's just, we're looking to do more murals in downtown and work with Summit Public Art to do so. We decided to make the holidays feel like holidays, even though there are many of us who didn't see any of our family during the holidays. But at least in downtown Summit, they went on almost as normal. And we had incredible turnout, safely following CDC guidelines of masking and distancing. We allowed families to be able to enjoy the holiday cheer that we create in downtown every year. And we had the horse and carriage rides, and we limited the number of people, and everyone wore masks on them. This was just the Hilltop Elf Scavenger Hunt was a new event that was hugely popular. You can go to the next slide.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then again.
Mm-hmm.
And there's the winners of the Hilltop House. They got a $500 gift card that they were thrilled with, and they were adorable and stopped in our office to pick that up. And it was just, they were jumping up and down on the other end of the phone, apparently, when Amanda called them, and the mother was very happy because the father happened to be, in the hospital at the time. So it just like, this is right before Christmas. It just was a really nice boost. So that was fun. And of course, we partnered, and we are grateful to the city and parking services to help us again offer free parking during the holiday shopper parking, which was incredibly generous of the city during, a time when especially for parking services had such a rough year as we know. So to be able to still offer free shopper parking was much appreciated, and we promoted it, as you see by that ad on the right.
Okay.
Oh, and this is this is a video we did. Can you hear that? You probably can't hear it.
You can't?
I can't.
Oh dear. I
don't know why, but we don't have to. You can go on our website.
Okay. Okay. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
It was really loud in my earbuds.
So that was just something we did, and because the businesses were so very grateful and really touched by the generosity of the Summit community. I was amazed by the generosity of the Summit community, and it's really obviously downtown Summit is incredibly important to Summit residents and to city officials, of course. So we're very grateful for all your support and collaboration in 2020. And now you really have to approve our budget now for 2021.
I just have to say, as a board member, Nancy and I joined Summit Downtown at about the same time, 3-4 years ago. And particularly this past year, there were personnel changes at SDI, but just watching everybody pivot, jump in, not only do what had to be done, but just come up with more and more creative ideas to help the businesses, to engage the community, and to make as much lemonade out of the lemons we were handed as possible. Has been amazing.
And it's still not done. We're doing some of that. We've done some I Love Summit. We did events in February. So we're still pivoting. So just keep an eye out, and basically we just ask the community to continue to support your Summit businesses, because they need it and you need them. So it's all good. So I'm happy to take questions before I go back to my elected position.
Thank you so much, Nancy and Claire. And thank you so much to SDI for everything you've done in the past year and a few months. It's been, the partnership with you guys has been great. And, I've been so pleased at the way SDI has pivoted and thought outside the box. And, this is particularly like with Sustain Summit and the Jumpstart Fund, you were working not just with downtown businesses, but with businesses throughout Summit, which isn't usually what you handle. And we appreciate that you were willing to help with businesses outside of the downtown as well, because we care so much about our community, our neighborhood businesses as well. And the partnership and just your flexibility and your willingness to think about new ideas and work together was so valuable. And we're so glad that we've built this relationship with you guys, and that we'll continue to work together to help the businesses and to help Summit residents enjoy our businesses and our downtown. With that, I will open it up to any comments or questions that any of the council members have to start. Council Member Vartan.
Thank you, Council President, and thank you, Nancy, and thank you, Claire. In the resolution section later, I'll be introducing SDI's budget. But while we have such a large audience and while they're here now, I think it's just important to note that the taxes collected from the Special Improvement District, which is also known as the downtown, is turned back over to SDI. And that's the money that they use to market and put on all of their events. So essentially the taxes collected from the downtown are reinvested to make sure that it remains so vibrant and so important for our community. So also on a personal note, it's an absolute pleasure to serve as a liaison to the SDI board and to see up close all of the amazing things that that board has done over the last year and a half. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Naidu.
Thank you, Council President. So first of all, I wanted to thank Nancy, Claire for coming, and Nancy and Claire, thank you for this excellent presentation. You know, serving even last year on SDI's board, I didn't remember all the things that had occurred in a way. And so it was great to see the number of things being done while we were all dealing with the pandemic. It is actually incredible. I think over my 6 years on council, I've served probably 3 or 4 years on the SDI board as one of the council liaisons, one way or the other. And I think the relationship between SDI and the city and the elected officials has never been stronger, in my opinion. I remember when I first got onto council, you know, the relationship was much more complicated, let's put it that way. And what has occurred over these past 6 years is a relationship built on trust because of all the dialogue that we've had together in order to ensure that we all recognize the importances of businesses and making it successful because we're all in a partnership together. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mayor, would you like to speak?
Just very briefly, I just couldn't not thank Nancy and Claire and the entire SDA board for all the hard work they put in this past year, and for the, as you pointed out, Council President, the willingness to be flexible and open-minded and understand that we have to address the needs of all the businesses in town, which they did very, very willingly. There was no arm twisting there. So I just think we are so fortunate, and I'm thankful to Council for working really hard to be flexible and work with Nancy and Claire and the entire SDA board and all of the businesses to move quickly in this pandemic. So I don't want to belabor the point. I just could not let the opportunity go without thanking you personally.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Any other comments from members of council? Okay, seeing none, are there any comments from members of the public on this topic? If there are any questions or comments about SDI's presentation.
Council President, just for edification, I just want to clarify that the assessment that funds our organization is just on the commercial properties within the downtown district. So it's not any Summit residents that pay that assessment, aka tax, to fund the organization. So just so your residents know that that's not something that's in your general fund.
Right. Thank you for that clarification. That's that's noted and appreciated. I don't see any comments from members of the public. So unless any other council members have anything to say, we'll let Nancy get back to her other meeting, and we'll thank you both very much and thank the entire SDI board, and we'll get to the budget a little later on in the meeting. So thank you for everything you do.
Thank you very much. Thanks again. Okay. Have a good meeting. I'll try to
you too.
Yeah. You have more people at your meeting.
Okay.
We got a lot.
Right. Now, do you want me hanging around for the budget as well?
I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Sure. If you know, we can contact you if there's a question, but I think we'll be okay.
Okay.
So much
appreciated.
I think you should hang around just because you don't want to miss all the fun.
Yeah. I had a zoning board meeting last night. I've had my fun.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. Thank you, Claire. Bye. Okay. So moving on, we're now up to public comments then. And at this point in the meeting, members of the public have an opportunity to comment on any matter not on the agenda. So in other words, we will not be talking about leaf blowers at this point. That'll come up in the ordinance section, which will be pretty soon thereafter. So if there's anyone here who would like to talk about anything other than what's on the agenda, please raise your hand. Let's see if I have.
President, if I may?
Yes, you have one email, correct, Madam?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Would you like to read that, please?
If I could, please. Thank you. One public comment email was received for this meeting from a Mr. Paul Grosse of 41 Sweetbriar Road. He's writing on behalf of the Summit United Parents for Return to Routine. His question is, will the council reconsider the request to represent our health and safety concerns about school activity and youth program close contact and quarantine rules?
I think as we explained at our last meeting, Mr. Gross, we rely on the Westfield Board of Health to make determinations on quarantine and other public health matters. We are not experts in that. And the school, this is really a matter for the school when it comes to school activities, school attendance, and the Board of Health works closely with the Board of Education and the school administration. And there really isn't a role for the council in that regard. And there was a question about sort of the role the Board of Health played. We have a shared services Board of Health. It's called the Westfield Board of Health, but it's shared by, I believe, I may be wrong on the number, but it's about 11 communities that share this service. And we have health officers in each of the communities. So Summit has a health officer assigned to it, but they're the people who make those decisions. They're the experts in this. And I don't think that there's any real role for the council in that regard. We would really be acting outside of our lane in doing so. So unless anyone has anything to add on that topic, Councilmember Hairston.
Thank you, Council President. I don't have anything to add in terms of jurisdiction because you're 100% correct. The Board of Education carries that responsibility and authority. However, in my role on the Safety and Health Committee, I can't go back, but if it is any indication that if Summit continues with the fastidiousness and really attention to all of the rules that we have in place, we can have hope that very shortly the rules will change. And so I just want to say that I support the Westfield Health Organization and being very careful and not risking any of our erring on the side of risk. And I feel that these efforts will pay off and can't do anything but I say give hope if we stick to it.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Hairston. Councilmember Allen.
Thank you, Councilwoman Fox, Council President, sorry. Just to reiterate, Councilwoman Hairston, and not to go in too deep into this, but the Westfield Board of Health rolls up to the state. So they are following the state guidelines, even though it's different than CDC, and it's based on transmission rates. So if you're in a moderate transmission rate, you can reduce the days of quarantine. If you're in a high transmission rate, in which we are right now in Union County, you're going to be at 14 days. So just want to put that clarification out.
Thank you, Councilmember Allen. That was very helpful information. Michael, do you have something to add?
Yes, just one addition. So the Westfield Board of Health, the Westfield the Health Department also answers to the Summit Board of Health. There is another layer here that there is accountability as far as who the health officer does seek guidance and advisory comments about what's going on. So just want for the public's benefit to know that there is another layer here, that there's a volunteer board of health in the city of Summit. So
thank you, Mr. Rogers, appreciate that. So with that, unless anyone else has any other comments, I will close the public hearing section, the public comments section of our meeting, and we'll now move on to ordinances for hearing. So, Madam Clerk, would you please read the ordinance for hearing 21-3230.
Of course. Ordinance 21-3230, ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a cap bank.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Hairston, would you like to introduce this ordinance for hearing?
This one's me, right?
Oh, did I say Hairston? I meant Barton. Sorry. Apologize.
No worries. Thank you, Council President. This ordinance allows for an increase in appropriations over 2.5% over last year's appropriations, and it also establishes a cap bank. In accordance with state law, these two things are done every year. As people know well, there is a 2% cap on the property tax increase over last year. This is a second cap which limits the appropriations from last year. As mentioned, when this was introduced, this is a routine ordinance done every year. It does not mean we will exceed the appropriations cap. As a matter of fact, we will not. Also, this ordinance allows us to bank the remaining appropriations under the cap for potential use in future budget years. I move to open the hearing on this ordinance.
I second it.
Okay, the hearing is open. Do I have any comments from members of council? Okay, any comments from members of the public? Okay, so seeing none, I will close this hearing and we'll move on to the next ordinance for hearing. Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Ordinance 21-3231, an ordinance amending Chapter 3, Police Regulations, Section 3-8, Noise Restrictions, Subsection 3-8.1, Noise Prohibitions, to provide for a pilot program to ban the use of gas-powered leaf blowers.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councilmember Little, would you like to introduce the ordinance for hearing, please?
I would. Thank you, Council President. I think that the Council President is going to go into more detail on the process tonight, but I'll just note that this is it will be a longer introduction than we normally do. I'm going to explain a little bit of the background of how we came to this ordinance since there's been so much public interest in this. Then we will take public comments. So it'll be just a little different format than we usually do. So I'd like to give a little background on why we're discussing a possible ban on gas leaf blowers, and then talk about some of the issues that have come up from the public. So the background on this, and I also apologize if some of this is a repeat of what I've discussed at previous council meetings, because we have been discussing this at several meetings this year, but as background, this is something council has been looking into for a number of years. I know that when I started campaigning in 2017, it's an issue that many residents raised with me. Also in 2017, the chair of the Environmental Commission for Summit had written a memo discussing a meeting that she had gone to with a number of towns in the region, advocating for possible bans on gas-powered leaf blowers. And in that memo, she noted that the Environmental Commission had been contacted by a number of residents. In 2018, the Green Summit did a survey of residents about issues they were concerned with, and one of the issues that was raised that people wanted to see Summit address was gas-powered leaf blowers. So this is, and council started looking into this. So we, as council, decided to that we would look at a pilot program within the city, and we approved the purchase of some electric leaf blowers for use by our own Department of Public Works. Those went into use over a year ago, and they've been very successful. So we started using them within the city. And then we were looking at what other towns were doing and restricting the use of gas leaf blowers, and still getting some comments from the public and requests from residents and some of the middle school students during the civic presentations, that kind of thing. But the requests really ramped up in the spring of last year, when people started staying home and working from home and doing school from home. The requests from residents for us to look into restrictions on gas-powered leaf blowers really increased. At that time, we thought about doing something last spring and summer, but it was the beginning of the pandemic. There was a lot of uncertainty. There were executive orders from the governor in place, and we felt that we needed to do more research. So we responded to the request by telling the residents that came to us that we would be forming an ad hoc committee to research the issue, which we did. We formed a committee with the other council member who sits on the Capital Projects Committee with me, David Naidu, Aaron Schrager, who is our Director of Community Services. And we reached out to 2 residents who had come to us with knowledge about this issue. And we also asked that 2 of our local landscapers join us so that we could ask them questions. Some on social media and some of the comments that have gotten in, we've been questioned about how we formed this ad hoc committee and why. I want to make it clear that this wasn't meant to be a representative sample of all of Summit or anything else. This was a working committee so that we could find out more about these issues and have help researching them. We do this on occasion. We have a number of advisory committees. We have had them in the past. Most recently, we had a working committee that looked at uses of the transfer station. We have an advisory committee for economic development. We've recently formed an advisory committee on senior issues, those kinds of things. So we do this at time to help us look into issues that we need to look into. That committee met through the fall, did research into lots of different possible solutions. We got feedback from the landscape companies as to what might be feasible and what might not in terms of solutions. We met with other elected officials who had put these bans in place to see what the repercussions and impacts were on their communities. We attended some regional meetings of towns that were looking into this, and we did a lot of research into this issue and the effects of these leaf blowers. And the conclusion that the committee came to was to propose a very limited ban of just 3 months in the summer. We chose the summer months because the landscapers told us that that is the time that the gas-powered leaf blowers are the least necessary to do the work that they do, because during those months, it's primarily grass clippings and there's other equipment that can be used to deal with the grass clippings easily, and that the power of the gas-powered leaf blowers wasn't necessary. We decided to do a pilot program so that we could evaluate the impact before considering doing something more permanent. And we felt like this was the most narrow way to weigh the balance of the harm that we were hearing that people were experiencing from the noise and the pollution, as well as the possible impact on residents and businesses within the city. So we really tried to listen to all sides, and hopefully everyone can recognize that we didn't take this lightly, and then we put a lot of thought and effort into this. We continue to do this. Even recently, based on some of the feedback we've gotten in the last few weeks, we are now planning to introduce at the next meeting an amendment to the ordinance, which would allow for an exemption application so that any resident or business in the city that has a specific hardship related to the ban can apply for an exemption to our committee. We'll review it and craft something that narrowly addresses the hardship, and we'll be introducing that at the next meeting. So if there's a specific hardship that you need to that someone is experiencing, because this ban will work with that. We also made sure that the penalties for violating the ban would be more educational than punitive. The first penalty was a warning, and then there's a fine after that, so that we were making sure that we were taking that into consideration. We had a lot of public engagement on this. It's remarkable in a year that we're experiencing a global pandemic, social unrest, legalization of marijuana in the state, and economic uncertainty. This was the biggest issue that residents have engaged with us on council by far. The next biggest, I think, was the marijuana legislation. We received about 31 emails, and approximately 10 to 12 people came to the meeting to discuss it with us. On this issue, as of today, by my count, which may not be correct, but my best efforts is to say that we've received 88 emails in favor of the ban and 75 against, with 3 neutral emails. And so I'd like to just address broadly, since we can't read all of those emails tonight in detail, or else we would be here until next Wednesday. I just wanted to kind of give a general summary and address some of the issues that were raised. In the emails that were in favor, I will note that out of those 88, there were approximately a dozen that asked us, or more maybe, that asked us to go even farther with the ban, that not to just do the 3-month ban, but to go even farther. And those, many of the emails were very poignant and heartfelt, describing to us the impact that the noise and the pollution has on their families. And those were the two issues that were raised the most, the noise, the air quality, and then a significant number also mentioned the health, the concern for the health of the workers who use these and the damaging effects. So those were the emails in favor. We had lots of people reach out to us through like I said, through the spring and the summer, the fall, and then, more recently when there's been more publicity on this. On the emails against, they were more mixed. I will note, out of those 75, again, there were about a dozen that were form emails that were, essentially exactly the same. So those were those were copied. There were about a dozen that were those type of emails, but expressing opposition to the ban. Those were a little more mixed in their opposition. So I think the primary focus was that it would cost jobs, it would cost money, it would be impactful on the businesses in town. So we did, that was one of the things we considered. That's why we engaged with some local landscapers who told us that, that it wouldn't be a huge impact. We don't expect that anyone would have to purchase equipment for this 3-month period because it is limited, because we've been told by people in the business that the gas blowers aren't necessary to do the work that they need to do over the summer. So we are not forcing anyone to, or putting anyone in a position where they have to purchase new equipment. In fact, one of the landscapers we spoke with also operates in Maplewood, where the ban has been in place for a number of years, and they have not purchased any new equipment or any electric blowers. They're able to use their existing equipment to deal with the work they need to do in the summers during the ban period in Maplewood. We have also spoken with the towns who have had this ban in place, and they have described that they have not seen an enormous impact on their landscape businesses in town, or and no one's expressed going out of business or losing lots of customers, that it seemed to work out fine for the businesses. And just in addition, we received an email today from the New Jersey Landscape Contractors Association, which is the lobbying group for landscapers in New Jersey, and they wrote to us that they would like to take this opportunity to applaud the City of Summit for creating a leaf blower program that is reasonable and equitable for landscape professionals and our constituents. While the association does not subscribe to the notion that gas-powered leaf blowers are a threat to public health and believe the noise issue has been exacerbated by the COVID-19 work-from-home influx, we would like to recognize and thank you for being sensible and fair. The dates and times you have chosen to limit the use of gas-powered leaf blowers are workable, and consider the need for this valuable tool during certain times of the year. We applaud your unbiased decision to apply these regulations to all users, not just landscape professionals. Thank you again. That's from the landscaper lobbying position. So, I think that the way that we've crafted this is to not affect people's businesses as much as possible. The second thing that was really brought up is that the ban would have a disproportionate effect on residents who do their own lawn care and who own these machines. And that was certainly something we really considered, quite a lot in our discussions, because we realize this does have an impact. So we did, we considered, there are towns that have eliminated residents and just applied the ban to landscape businesses, but those types of regulations have been challenged in court as unfair and discriminatory. And we've been advised by our council that a ban on everyone is what is the only way to go here. We did do it for a limited window of the 3 months, and during that time, like I said, they're not as necessary. And this issue really comes down to a balance. Really, everything that we do on council is a balance between competing needs. And even the most popular measure we put forward has costs, in some way or form. And in this case, we have a number of residents who are coming to us and expressing how much harm they're suffering from these gas leaf blowers. We know that there's going to be an impact on residents who want to use them in their own yards and in their own way, but we have to do some sort of balance to address these needs. And this was the way that we came up with to do that. The third thing was that a lot of residents complained that this would be a slippery slope. Why gas-powered leaf blowers? Why, if we do this, aren't we going to expand this to all kinds of mowers and weed whackers and barbecue grills and everything else? And I would say, one, we're not looking for more work to do, or we're not looking for solutions that don't have problems attached to them. Two, that these gas-powered leaf blowers are really kind of a unique machine because they blend gas and oil in the same machine, and that really causes high levels of emissions and pollution in a way that other machines do not. It's an outdated technology. There's many reports that using these type of leaf blowers for only 30 minutes causes as much emissions as running a modern pickup truck or large vehicle for an 8-hour period of time. They cause a tremendous amount of pollution. They're also extremely loud. Most of the commercial leaf blowers operate in the 85 decibel range, which is well above our noise ordinance. The other thing to remember is that in decibels, going from 10 decibels up doubles the sound. So going from 50 to 60 is double the sound. Going from 60 to 70 then doubles the sound again. So these leaf blowers operate at very, very high levels of sound. The other thing that the gas-powered leaf blowers do that other machines don't is they operate at a low frequency of sound. And when you operate at low frequencies of sound, the sound carries further and travels through walls and other barriers in a way that higher frequency sounds don't. So these, they're very loud, they're polluting, and they operate at a frequency of sound that is tremendously disruptive to many, many people. So I don't think that we are not looking to expand this beyond, and these are the machines we get the complaints about, not about other things. And the next ones are the council has more important things to do. And why are we doing this? We're doing this because we have had more engagement on this issue than any other issue. This is a big problem for many, many residents. It might not be for you, it might not be for your family, but there are many of your neighbors and friends that they're very disturbed by the noise and pollution that they experience from the blowers. And then, they're asking us to please do something about it. We can't just ignore the harm that is being caused to many of our residents and not try to mitigate it in some way. As you heard from the SCI, the council does have other important things to do. We also do those as well. We don't just focus on one thing. We do lots of things. The other thing that we heard is that there hasn't been enough time for the public to weigh in or for us to tell people about this. And I would say that we have had more engagement on this than any other issue. So people do seem to know about it and see it. This is the same process we go through for anything we pass. You'll hear, you just heard us pass an ordinance on our capping for a budget, which, is potentially of greater impact to the public than gas-powered leaf blowers. And we did in the same way that we did this. We talk about it at council meetings. It's been publicly discussed at many meetings. We try to come up with solutions. We notice it, and then we have a hearing where people are going to be allowed to speak, which everyone will have their chance to. This is what we do. Finally, people really asked that we look at other solutions other than this 3-month ban. And we did look at maybe limiting days, limiting hours, enforcing the noise ordinance. All those things would have had more detrimental impact on our landscaper companies than this limited ban. And the landscapers we spoke to asked us not to proceed that way, that this was the least impactful. So that's what we're doing, especially with the exemption application that we are also going to be introducing at the next meeting. We feel that this is a fair and equitable way to deal with this. And finally, some people said this was just a temporary problem that's going to go away as soon as everyone goes back to work, and that we should, just let things play out. But I think we all realize that people may be working from home and that there may be ongoing situations. And I would also point to the fact that people have been asking us to deal with this problem for many years. We've been taking slow steps towards a solution, and this is what we came up with. So we have narrowly crafted a solution to try to address the needs of the people that are coming to us expressing harm. We hope that we have done it in a way that addresses the problem without overly impacting and negatively impacting others in the community. We've done our best to do that. We've worked very hard on this, spent an enormous amount of time, and I hope that everyone can at least respect the process, even if you don't agree with what we're doing. So with that, I would ask that we open this hearing on this ordinance.
And I second it.
Thank you, Councilmember Little, for that excellent introduction. So before I open the hearing, I just want to explain what the process is going to be tonight, because we are going to deviate a little from what we usually do. So the clerk has received 169 emails on this ordinance since the beginning of March. Every email that was sent to the clerk has been distributed to all members of council and the mayor. So we've read them all, we've discussed them, we've thought about them, we've done research on some of the questions that have been asked in them. We've spent a lot of time on this. And we've also had numerous conversations with members of the public who've called us, who've sent us emails, who've stopped us on the street or in the grocery store to ask us questions. And as Councilmember Little said, this is the issue that's had the most engagement of the public since the pandemic started last spring. So we appreciate the engagement of all the members of the community in this process. And I see that many of the people who have submitted emails are here to speak tonight as well. Typically, we usually follow the rule that if you submit an email, you don't get to speak as well. We are in the interest, because we know there's so much engagement and so much interest, we are going to allow people who have submitted emails to speak. But because we have now 90 attendees, and I think most are here on this particular issue, I'm going to ask everyone to hold everyone strictly to 3 minutes. So when you make your comments, I'm going to have the timer on, and as soon as 3 minutes is up, I'm going to let you finish your sentence, and I'm going to ask you to stop. And if you don't stop, I am going to use the mute button on the Zoom function. So I ask you to please respect that, because we have so many people here, and we need to be respectful of everyone's time. If you want to read your email that you've submitted, you can read up to 3 minutes, and then I'm going to stop you. Or if you want to say something different, that's okay too. I ask you not to repeat what other people have said. It's okay to say, I agree with X, with this point or that point, but please don't repeat, in other words, the same comments, because this is going to be a very long night at 90 people at 3 minutes a pop. So let's all try to get through this as quickly as possible. And so when I recognize you, please state your name and your address for the record, and then you'll have your 3 minutes. And what we're going to do is we're going to listen to all the comments, and we're going to address any new issues that haven't been addressed by Councilmember Little so far, any salient comments, we will address at the end. We're not going to have a back and forth with each commenter in the interest of saving time. So after we have had, after the members of the public have had an opportunity to comment, the clerk will read out the names of the commenters in favor and opposed to the ordinance, and then we will open the floor up to council members to make their comments. So that's the way this process is going to start. And I'm going to, I'm going to get my timer all set up, and I will ask for our first commenter. Donna Patel, go ahead. Go ahead and unmute.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm speaking tonight. I'm Donna Goggin Patel, 115 Beekman Road. I'm speaking in my capacity as chair of the Environmental Commission of Summit. Dear Mayor and Common Council members, the Environmental Commission supports the proposed pilot program to restrict gas-powered leaf blowers in Summit from June through August 2021. The most prominent environmental concern of using gas-powered leaf blowers is their contribution to local air pollution. The two-stroke engine prevalent in gas-powered leaf blowers is inefficient and allows carcinogenic gases and fumes to escape from the engine. These include carbon monoxide, nitrous oxides, and hydrocarbons, which contribute to smog and acid rain. Gas-powered leaf blowers produce pollutant emissions at a rate exceeding that of automobiles. For context, studies have found that using a gas-powered leaf blower for 1 hour produces carbon monoxide emissions equivalent to over 8 hours of operating a current model year car. Our research on the topic also has found that leaf blowers erode, compact, and dry out the soil and cause harm to plants, microorganisms, and pollinators. Leaf blowers can create clouds of industrial pollutants, pollens, fertilizers, herbicides and pesticides, dried animal feces, dust, and demolition debris, such as lead and asbestos, which impacts our local air quality. We encourage raking or sweeping leaves and grass clippings instead of using leaf blowers where possible. Based on these findings and the related health and noise concerns, the Environmental Commission supports the proposed pilot program. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Patel. Okay, so moving on, we have Helene Hulse. Go ahead, Ms. Hulse.
Hi, all of you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Helene Hulse. I live at 25 Parmley Place, and I've been a Summit resident for 24 years. I very much support the pilot program to ban gas leaf blowers for the summer. I've done a lot of reading about gas leaf blowers. Not only are their emissions highly damaging to our air quality, but they also contribute to health issues and cumulative hearing loss. The noise emitted from them is loud and constant. I've measured blowers on my street at 84 decibels, which is above the accepted decibel level in our current noise ordinance. They run for over an hour, impeding my concentration, my ability to enjoy music, conversation, reading TV, or just some peace. Shortly after those landscapers finish, others start. When I walk in my neighborhood, I encounter landscapers with blowers at almost every turn, and particulate matter is kicked up for me to inhale. I can't hear what I'm listening to on my phone or carry on a conversation without the constant hum of these blowers. We all have a right to do what we wish on our properties. However, when what we do on our property starts to affect our neighbors, that's the problem. The low frequency sound of gas-powered blowers travels farther distances than electric or battery blowers. They do so at higher decibel levels, as Councilperson Little said. They penetrate walls and barriers, so their use affects many people in homes surrounding the person using the gas blower. Also, the toxins emitted from them are not restricted solely to the ozone around the homes of those who opt to use them. So using a blower on one's property does not affect just the person who chooses to do so. And we all have a right to enjoy clean air, peace, and quiet on our own property and in our community. The gas leaf blowers used on houses surrounding me prohibits that. I'm not looking to impact any businesses in a negative way. There are few leaves to blow during the summer. And just as we've all invested in new cars and smart TVs, more efficient computers and appliances, we will eventually be using equipment that's less damaging to our environment and our health, which is the reason this new equipment is being made. I've spoken to people who have used landscapers with battery and electric equipment and to landscapers who use them. The landscapers have adjusted and have not lost business, and on the contrary, they've gained customers. So for the same reasons we've stopped using coal because of its harmful emissions, passed the Clean Air Act, and are developing cleaner alternatives for energy, we have to strive to stop damaging our environment, our health, and our peace of mind. This is the least onerous time of year to begin to transition to cleaner, less noisy lawn equipment. It's only for 3 months. If there are better alternatives out there, why not start getting used to using them?
Thank you, Ms. Hulse. I appreciate your comments, and we're going to move on now. Jennifer Millar, go ahead. Ms. Millar, are you? Could you please unmute?
Hi, this is Jennifer Millar. I live at 24 Fernwood Road in Summit. I'm assuming you guys can all hear me fine. I'm just calling to say I am not in support of this legislation for the reason that it was very clearly presented, Beth, and I appreciate all the hard work that council has done on this matter. That being said, if it is a widely concerning issue that many people of the town care about, as you're saying, I think it's something that should be voted on. That's as simple as I feel like we have a machination to deal with these issues, and that's voting. And I think if we could vote for it, I think I'd feel it was more fairly applied. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. All right, we'll move on. Wolfgang Gunther, go ahead.
Yes, good evening. My name is Wolfgang Günther and I live at 11 Fernwood Road. I was one of the residents who sent an email to the council. I'm very much in favor of the ban on gas-powered leaf blowers. It is ironic that one tries to find a house to live in that is in a quiet neighborhood, and then once a week leaf blowers are turned on and make you stop whatever you're doing. The level of noise outside and even inside your home, even with the windows closed, is just too high. And when I say once a week, it's actually not just once, but if you're unlucky, 9 times a week. The landscaper working on your own property, then your neighbor's lawns on either side of you, 3 opposite of you, and 3 in the back. Again, that is 9 times a week of too much noise and bad fumes. So I do hope that the council members will vote in favor of the ban on gas-powered leaf blowers. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. Let's see. We've got Stephen Spur. Go ahead, Mr. Spur.
All right, good evening. My name is Stephen Spur, S-P-U-R-R. I reside at 61 Woodland Avenue. Just a quick process question first for either the clerk or Mr. Giacobbe. Were any of the 169 emails summarized by Councilwoman Little submitted with the intent of being read aloud into the record by the clerk? Point 2 of the rules for public comment at Common Council meetings adopted on January 5th, 2021, calls for comments from members of the public to be audibly read aloud. To the benefit of those comments being read aloud into the record extends beyond members of Common Council and city staff privy to them, but I would argue also to members of the interested public.
Thank you for your comment, Mr. Spur. We are following our procedure, which is that we do not read every email. We substantially summarize the emails, and we will do that at the end if there's anything that's been raised in an email that has not been raised in public comment. But Councilmember Little has sort of talked about the universe of what has been discussed. So it has been summarized. If anything else comes up, we will deal with it at the end, but we are not going to be, in general, taking questions. This isn't going to be a back and forth. We're going to save all the questions till the end, but we are following our process, and I have explained that process.
Okay, if I can just use my remaining time to provide comments on the ordinance then. My comments and questions then this evening will be limited to the proposed pilot ban on gas-powered leaf blowers. I'll start by saying that this ordinance is not without its merits. Who among us does not desire a quieter community or cleaner air? Whatever benefits may arise from this change needs to be fairly weighed against any detriments before a decision can be made, even on a pilot program. I'm specifically concerned about 3 aspects of this proposal. First, the abrupt and temporary nature of this proposed change. Are homeowners, landscapers, and others like Summit's Board of Education and Housing Authority expected to simply keep the receipts on battery-powered equipment purchases? If this change is not permanently adopted, this pilot program will have proven to be a tremendously expensive experiment dropped into the laps of others in difficult economic times on tremendously short notice. Secondly, I've observed there to be limited enforcement resources for noise ordinance here in Summit. I've not seen or heard a plan for enforcement. Will new equipment need to be deployed? Will additional staff from Chief Bartolotti or Mr. Schrager's teams be required? Related to this, it would be helpful to understand how our current noise ordinances are being enforced. I know my neighbors are struggling to bring a satisfactory resolution to the ongoing Bristol-Myers Squibb noise issues, and they would appreciate time and attention being expended first there before extending it to greater noise enforcement burdens. And finally, third, there appears to be no clear measures of success for this ordinance. I don't believe we will be able to objectively measure the success or failure of the proposed pilot ban. Should it be adopted tonight? Do we have a mechanism to verify the added quiet to our neighborhoods? How will we know if the air quality has improved, and what elements to change would we consider should we go forward to extend this as a permanent ban? My suggestion would be to push consideration of this proposed pilot ban to 2022. Thank you.
For your comments. Okay. So moving on, let's see. Henry Bassman, go ahead.
Okay, I just unmuted. My name is Henry Bassman. I live at 18 Hartley Road in Summit. I favor the gas-powered leaf blower ban for 3 months this summer. About 5:45 yesterday afternoon, I went outside for a walk. I heard 2 leaf blowers that were 6 houses from mine. I have a decibel meter app on my iPhone, so I measured the sound level at an annoying 75 decibels in my driveway. I walked toward the sound, and on the street next to the property where they were being used, the sound level was 100 decibels, well above the 85 decibel level where sustained hearing damage can occur. So not only are the gas-powered blowers a hearing danger to the workers who use them, but they also are a hearing danger to neighbors when they're being used. And since children are especially susceptible to hearing loss from loud noise, they could be a significant danger to nearby children. Gas-powered blowers can be necessary and safer in the spring and autumn when windows tend to be closed. But in the summer, when people's windows can be open, when folks like to sit on their patios or decks, barbecue, or just enjoy the weather, they are an unnecessary nuisance and can be dangerous to people near them. As homeowners, we deserve to have peace in our homes. That is why there are noise restrictions on automobiles and trucks, why roosters and cattle are not allowed in residential areas, and people are prohibited from playing loud music outdoors. Some people have complained that the proposed ordinance is an infringement on constitutional property rights. Well, there are others. You can't use your mobile phone while driving, and you can't drive a car without a muffler. I see this ordinance in the same vein. Others have complained that it will cost them more to have their lawn maintained, or that it will impose a burden on landscapers because, quote, industrial grade, unquote, electric blowers can cost $1,000 or more. As a fair comparison, the, quote, industrial strength, unquote, gas-powered leaf blowers used for autumn leaf pickup also cost $1,000 and more. However, most of the landscapers I've seen use leaf blowers that cost around $300 to $350. Comparably powered gas-powered leaf blowers sell for close to the same price. By saving $3 a gallon for gasoline, landscapers could recover a significant portion of their investment. So the impact on homeowners' landscape fees based on cost to landscapers should be negligible. I trust council to make a wise decision on this matter. Personally, I would be happier if the council just made the 3-month ban permanent.
Thank you, Mr. Bassman. Moving on, Tim Erde. Go ahead, Mr. Erde.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. Just a point of clarification before I speak. One of the letters that was received, I believe, from Canoe Brook actually against the ordinance represented was supported by 575 members of Summit, which is notable, I think, for the record. As far as my statement, I can't hear you, Marjorie. I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm just going to clarify something. We have received comments from some of those members. Canubrook sent a letter. They attached a list of members, but some of the members whose names were listed do not support this, do not support what Canubrook has submitted and have said so to us. Some have also submitted letters in favor of the ordinance. So I think, and the letter actually from Canubrook did not actually say that that the people who were listed were in support. So I think you should be very careful about how you characterize that. I'm going to give you back the rest of your time, but I just didn't want to leave that kind of factual or lack of fact out there. So go ahead.
Thank you. All right, my name is Tim Erday. It's E-R-D-A-Y. I live at 50 Canubrook Parkway. I have been a resident of Summit for 22 years, and I've watched quite a bit of growth and progression in the city over those years. Multiple administrations, governors, councils, boards of education. There's been a commonality amongst all of them, just as there is today, in that it is a group of engaged citizens who take time away from their families to continue to make Summit a destination for families, growing businesses, and likely the most important, as we've seen during COVID, a huge incubator to many wonderful charitable organizations. Whether the houses of worship or many local foundations, we're a community who has consistently stood up for those who may be struggling. You only have to look recently at the community as the community advocated for Lisa Moriello or set up a charitable fund for downtown businesses during the height of COVID. We always managed to rally together to help those in need. Regardless of the council composition or the political affiliation, Summit's strength has been to take so many diverse experiences and perspectives, to take time to listen to all the voices of the community and take a measured approach to moving Summit forward. I feel that Mayor Raddist and the council has done that throughout COVID. Unfortunately, I don't believe we are taking that same measured approach to this ordinance that could potentially impact small businesses and residents who are in fact slowly trying to recover from the pandemic. Clearly, as you've stated, there's a lot of energy around this issue, and it's startling to think of the great divide on both the national and local stage around a topic as innocuous as leaf blowers. Within the community, there have been questions around the lack of transparency in the process. There's been questions about the committee pursuing it. Was the committee who was pursuing this ordinance, in fact, balanced in their pursuit of facts? Were there any voices on the committee opposed to the ordinance? And most importantly, was there enough consideration to the potential impact on small businesses or large employers in the community? I do understand the need to review the issue, but believe that once more discussion is had amongst the many stakeholders in the community, you can come to a more balanced solution that would satisfy the noise and emission considerations without people losing jobs, especially given the fact that electric leaf blowers can be just as noisy, if not more so, than many of the EPA-approved GOB devices that are approved in states like California, who have the tightest emission standards in the country. I would encourage you to engage further with the community to better understand the many voices of the constituents you are elected to represent, to come up with a more fair and balanced ordinance. After all, we can still be progressive. However, we must progress responsibly. As to the vote tonight, some council members have been very vocal about their support of this ordinance, some going as far as posting on social media weeks ago, confirming that they are going to vote in favor of the ordinance even before the public comment period began. The one voice whom we have not heard from, though, is Mayor Raddist. So I'd like to ask Mayor Raddist, where do you personally stand on this ordinance, given the short timeline, the potential impact it could have on struggling families and the many small businesses in the community? Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Mr. Erday. And now we're going to move on. I just got to turn off the alarm here.
There was a question there from Mayor Raddist.
You know what? We are not doing a back and forth, and we will at the end, as I said in the rules, we will go at the end. We will address any of the comments and questions that have not been addressed previously, but you're not going to be addressing particular members of council or the mayor in that way. That's not how we ever conduct business here. So we'll move on. Our next person is John Delano. I'm sorry if I'm saying your name wrong. Go ahead.
That's the correct pronunciation. Thank you. And thank you for the time this evening. My name is John Delano. I am at 223 Summit Avenue. And I would just like to voice my, that I'm against this ordinance. There are a number of noises that are loud that we all deal with on a constant basis, whether it's children playing in the yard next to us that can be above the 85 decibel. I don't believe we're going to be outlawing them. I don't believe we'll be outlawing electric drills that are used in construction that also are above the 85 decibel. I also know that 85 decibel is considered safe while still above the ordinance. It seems arbitrary that we are selecting this issue and driven by the fact that other cities in the area seem to have latched onto this issue. I don't believe that the city of Summit needs to be driven by decisions in other communities, but whether they should be driven by what is best for the city of Summit and what is best for its citizens. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. All right. Just got to reset the timer here. Okay, moving on. Let's see. Maddie Marathi, go ahead.
Hello there. Thank you for letting me speak. Well, we fully support this temporary ban.
Could you please state your name and address?
Sorry, name is Rajan Marathe and address is 11 Harrison Court in Summit, of course.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, you fully support this ban. It's temporary. It's 3 months. It's only the 3 months of summer. And it is actually very beneficial for the city and for the citizens of the city. I will not repeat all the points that people have already made, but the air pollution and the noise pollution and the health benefits to the workers who mostly are voiceless. I think that is one thing people are talking very little about is these workers working for these landscaping businesses that really do not have a voice. And this will benefit them more than even the citizens of Summit. I thank you, and I really hope that this temporary ban goes into effect. Thanks.
Thank you for your comment. Okay, moving on. Let's see, Dennis Alaco. Go ahead, Mr. Alaco.
Good evening, members of council. My name is Dennis Alaco. I reside at 25 Stockton Road here in Summit, and I've been a resident here in Summit for over 50 years. I've taken quite a bit of the fluff out of my comments tonight, and I'm going to go right to the question portions that hopefully members of council will address before this evening's meeting is over. My first question would be this: how many complaints have been received over the course of the last 1, 2, or even 3-year period that would necessitate council to form an ad hoc committee? If our memory serves us correct, former Councilman Hurley recently indicated on social media he was not of the belief during his 6 years on council that this measure raised to the level requiring any type of council action. So I'm assuming that this issue has been raised over the course of the last 3 years since Councilman Hurley is no longer a member of council. And before we put together an ad hoc committee, I'm sure that council would be able to quantify the number of complaints that were actually received by residents over that certain period of time. Interestingly enough, when I tuned into last week's council meeting, I believe it was Council President had mentioned that we were retiring an ad hoc committee that was formed to do a transfer station land study. That ad hoc committee was made up of in excess of 15 residents and members of council. This particular issue has 7. Yet it seems to be an issue that is far more reaching than a land use study at the transfer station. Of the members of council and the residents that made up the committee, how many of those residents were in favor of a ban versus opposed to a ban? How many of those residents participated in taking care of their own properties versus the use of landscaping companies at their properties? And interestingly enough, there's been a lot of conversation about the input of the landscape companies, the 2 landscape companies that were part of the ad hoc committee. One of the questions that I have is very specific to those companies. Do any of those 2 companies currently provide service to the city of Summit? And are they contracted with the city of Summit and compensated by the city of Summit? Because if they are, in my mind, that would border on basically a conflict of interest because they're going to tell you folks exactly what they think you want to hear. Additionally,
Laco, I'm going to ask you to wrap up, please.
Sure, absolutely. Bottom line is four residents making up a committee are kind of tough to handle on an issue this large. For those of you that don't know, my alter life, I officiate NCAA level basketball. One of the rules, one of the principles that we follow is that we need to be realistic when we apply rules. We never want to be rulistic. In my mind, this is exactly what we've done here.
Okay,
Trying to apply rules to a situation that we really would be better served looking at a little differently.
Thank you for your comment, Mr. Laco. All right, moving on. We've got, let's see, Tracy Keegan, go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Tracy Keegan, 15 Sweetbriar Road. I am fully in support of the temporary ban. And I don't want to repeat what others have in support of the ban have said, but there are a couple points I just want to quickly touch on based on some comments from a few of the people that have already spoken. So first is just in terms of the health. The US EPA did a study on gas-powered garden and lawn equipment and found that there are a prevalent source of toxic and carcinogenic emissions that cause a range of cancers and serious heart, lung, and neurologic issues. The study concluded that there is mounting evidence on the dangers of short-term exposure and, quote, that communities and environmental, public health, and other government agencies should create policies and programs to protect the public from GLGE, garden and lawn gas-powered equipment, air pollutants, and promote non-polluting alternatives. So therefore, if Common Council moves ahead with this temporary ban, Summit would actually be heeding the advice of the EPA. And then second, I've heard some people say that jobs would be lost as a result of this. And according to Bob Mann, who's the Director of Government Relations for the Association of Landscape Professionals, it's actually the exact opposite. Mann said in his testimony, a leaf blower is a labor multiplier. Even before COVID-19, we just simply could not find people who wanted to work in this industry, end quote. So according to my understanding, what Mann is saying is leaf blowers are actually used to replace employees or to reduce the amount of employees needed on a job. And given that there are limited people who want to do the job, at least according to Director Mann, it would follow that banning the use of gas-powered leaf blowers may actually increase the value of employees, giving companies wouldn't be able to rely on the machines to take their place. So I don't want to take up too much time, but I just want to thank you all for all your hard work on everything, not just this issue. And thanks again.
Thank you, Ms. Keegan. Okay. So moving on, Anna Fredette, go ahead, Ms. Fredette.
Hi, my name is Anna Fredette of 43 Morris Avenue. I'm here today to speak to you as a landscaper's daughter of 40 years. He's been in business. I'm absolutely morally and logically against this summer ordinance. Like I said, he's been in business for 40 years, and to touch on the health concerns of some people who are, genuinely concerned for the workers who are using these equipments and, how it impacts their health. While he doesn't obviously represent everyone in the business, he's 65 years old. He's been in business for 40 years, and he has never once had any type of health issue, much less related to his type of work, other than some skin issues from being in the sun for 40 years. But more so, I wanted to touch on questions in regards to this. As I think it's been very publicly noted, the for and against reasons, as you guys have summarized. But I really want to touch on the question. So I wanted to know, how does one go about the complaints that they might have against a neighbor? Is this going to divide the community? How are we going to deal with that? And how is this going to really be enforced if people don't feel the need to get their neighbors in trouble or their neighbors' landscapers in trouble? What type of evidence is going to be required to go about this? Does it have to be recorded? How is that going to work? And then enforcement, I have not heard anything about how police or any type of plan for how that's going to happen. if they're going to have to list everything, or they're going to have an anonymous tip line, or how that's going to work. Is there going to be a special task force just for leaf blowers? I really want to know the details on that. And then I did note online from a councilman that there are 2 electric leaf blowers that are currently being used by the city, and that the rest of the work is pretty much contracted out. So my question is, are those contracted workers also using electric powered leaf blowers? And then my last question is, touching on Tim Erday's, that how many complaints have actually been filed to date, and how many summons were issued as a result to make this such a high priority in comparison. And that's it for today. I hope you'll consider this from, a daughter of a landscaper, as well as I want to talk about the other companies that will be affected by this. We seem to only be talking about landscapers, but power washers, construction workers, gutter cleaners, who's going to get up on a roof and take the leaves out of your gutter by hand? What other tools do they have to do this type of work? It's going to affect a lot more than just landscapers. So thank you for your time today.
Thank you for your comments. Moving along, Rachel Kramer. Go ahead, Ms. Kramer. Ms. Kramer, go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. My name is Rachel Kramer. I live at 88 Elm Street in Summit, New Jersey, and I oppose an ordinance proposing a ban on gas leaf blowers from June 1st to August 31st. I was going to try to ask some questions, but it's clear that council is not prepared to answer questions at this time. So it seems that the 2 residents were actually in favor of the ban. Ms. Little confirmed that this ad hoc committee was not meant to be representative of the entire community. So I will say that in the FAQ published, it stated that research, information, and meeting notes had been included in the decision-making process. Has any of that been made public? So it has been made public, or it hasn't been made public?
Ms. Kramer, we have said that we are going to take all the questions at the end.
Okay. Okay. All right. Perfect.
So you can go ahead and ask your questions. We're going to collect them, and we will answer whatever hasn't already been answered.
Okay. Perfect. So in a city of 22,000 people, 2 residents were included in a decision-making body. The council's commitment to the city of Summit is not in question here, but what is unclear is whether or not both points of view were fairly represented before this ordinance was proposed. During the 12-1 council meeting, it was stated, and I quote, "People in this community want things to be done carefully and cautiously with transparency, a lot of thought, and a lot of community input. An ad hoc committee of 7, minimal communication, minimal opportunity for open discussion, 0 Q&A doesn't really align with the previous statement of what the citizens of Summit want. By postponing due process associated with this ban until next summer, I believe that we can achieve the above." It's also been asked whether landscapers that are contracted by the city of Summit use electric blowers. I had a conversation with a landscaping company today that was contracted by the city of Summit doing work across the street from my house. They were using gas leaf blowers. They did not know about the ban. They do not have electric equipment in inventory. When was the city planning on communicating these proposed changes to contractors that they hire for landscaping work throughout the city of Summit? Whether this is a pilot or not, gas leaf blowers will be banned for 3 months, and it will require small and large businesses as well as residents to adapt on short notice in one way or another. In the middle of a still raging pandemic, at this point, I do not believe the best course of action is to mandate these changes as a means to collect data before a permanent decision is made. There are several viable alternatives and compromises that can be reached if the council is willing to consider them and invite a bigger portion of the community into the conversation that do not include passing this ban tonight and potentially impacting businesses and residents during already a trying year. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Kramer. Moving on, we've got Ed Tang. Go ahead, Mr. Tang.
Hi. Hey, Council. Thanks for hearing me out. This is Ed Tang at 234 Summit Avenue. I just wanted to thank the Council for doing their research and staying strong and advocating for this pilot ban of gas-powered leaf blowers. We're in support of this ordinance. First, I mean, trying to curb noise pollution as well as actual pollution seems like a win to me. It's frankly a bit disappointing that opponents seem to think that dirty, noisy, decades-old technology is the best we can do. And so I'm encouraged with the measured approach you're taking here, especially the recent exemption process you carved out. I mean, this is a pilot ban. This is an experiment, and we're all going to learn something here. I'm confident Council will make an even more informed decision based on the actual data. Just wanted to share one data point. I talked to my landscaper, and while he isn't the biggest fan of a year-round ban, he's prepared for the Summit pilot ban. He already has electric leaf blowers, and since the debris tends to be small in the summer, electric can handle the summer load. He also isn't planning to charge me extra for the summer. And you know what? Even if he did, if residents in a city like Summit can't absorb the marginal cost, then no one can. And we might as well just give up. Anyway, in summary, I just wanted to thank the Council for their leadership. You guys are volunteers. So, thank you for your tireless advocacy and putting in the hard work to improve our quality of life. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tang. Moving on, I've got JC. Go ahead. Go ahead and unmute. JC? Go ahead. Your hand. Go ahead. Can you? It looks like you're unmuted. All right. I'm going to call for any other comments.
Hello.
Okay. Go ahead.
I didn't know I was listed as JC. I'm sorry.
Okay. Could you please state your name?
My name is Joy Calabrese. I live at 112 Orchard Street in Summit. I don't have anything pre-prepared to deliver to you, but I will speak to you as a grandma from my heart. My family has been involved in Summit in the retail community in one way or other for over 100 years. We have lived on Tanglewood Drive, Lowell Avenue, Orchard Street, Yale Street. I'm very familiar with the different neighborhoods. And my concern as a homeowner whose husband and in-laws and cousins and uncles have been in the landscaping business is that we're not really considering enough what these men need and do for us. They keep us beautiful. Summit is a beautiful community. I do not hear a lot of people talking about how it would be a hardship to them personally not to be able to run their blowers in the summer months. But my landscaper pulls up to my yard. He is here for 30 minutes or less. The blower that he uses is on a fraction of that time. The machines he uses to cut the lawn, yes, they make noise. But I live in an area close to Route 78. I hear Route 78 at night from my bedroom. So, I mean, we have to understand that these men that we pay to do the work that we're not able to do or willing to do have to be taken into consideration. How long do these batteries on the electric blowers last? How many would be needed in a working day for a crew of 3 or 4 men? I think we need more landscaper input in this. I think the people who are perhaps not even English speaking workers for these companies need to be taken into consideration. Yes, I understand their health concerns, but if landscapers are letting people go because they have to have a big change of equipment, that is something that we have to look at. I think if landscapers carry the burden, the financial burden of extra equipment, extra batteries, and a longer time to do the same work that a gas blower would do. We're being discriminatory in this situation. I want clean air. I want my grandchildren not to go deaf, but I do also want my neighbors who are landscapers to be able to maintain their quality of life and their businesses. I think John Delano made a good point, and I think both sides really need to be adequately represented. I so appreciate and respect the council in the hours of research they've done. I only wish I'd seen some of the results of this research.
Ms. Calabrese, I'm going to ask you that your 3 minutes is up. I'm going to ask you to finish.
Thank you. I don't have to tell you I'm not in favor of this ordinance. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Are there any other comments from members of the public? Okay. All right, Mr. Felmett, go ahead.
Hi, good evening, council and mayor. I hope everyone's doing well tonight. I just wanted to thank you guys. I'm Ryan Felmett from 57 Madison Ave, by the way. I wanted to thank everyone for their time and their thoughtful and creative ideas as it relates to this ordinance and the attention to the increased quality of life and attempts to minimize the negative impacts to residents and small businesses that may be opposed to this ordinance. I was hopeful that the written comments, no matter how much there may be, would be read aloud, as you said yourselves how important and how engaged the city has been as a whole. I think that a lot of them are customized to personal feelings and personal sentiments to what is believed. So at a minimum, it would be nice to hear those comments and to hear thoughtful, not summarized, but thoughtful responses to each of them, that they took the time out to also engage with you. And it's a great opportunity for the city, the residents and the city of Summit, the officials, to kind of come together and have some dialogue. But I'm hopeful that at the end of this, that the questions will be answered as was laid out. So in lieu of that, I had some written comments I had submitted, but I'll just ask a few specific questions that I have. And they're related to the ad hoc process of this group. I just would like to know, how many ad hoc groups do we have in Summit? I know the power outage one, I wasn't aware of this one. Do they have a reporting mechanism to the public? And if not, why? Can they be made public? I also heard a reference compared to Bristol-Myers Squibb noise. I think that's an unfair representation of noise pollution in Summit. You're talking about 200 to 300 people that are on the perimeter of one business compared to 22,000 residents who live across the city. So that is an extremely unfair comparison. I don't know why that was made, but it definitely needs to be clarified. And my last point, I just on the enforcement, I think someone might have already mentioned this, but from what I understand, there's been one summons issued for noise in the past 3 years here in Summit. I'd like to hear who is in charge of noise enforcement. How will it be done? Can you please walk us through a real life example of how enforcement will be done in the light of this ordinance? I'm very interested to hear the answers to these questions and everyone else's, and I look forward to hearing them at the end. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you for your comment, Mr. Felmett. Okay, moving on. Dory Gagnon. Go ahead, Ms. Gagnon.
Hi, it's Dory Gagnon. I live at 27 Bedford Road. I've been a resident here for around 37 years, 40 years. I am against the ordinance. I submitted a letter as well, but I just wanted to add a couple things, and I have a couple questions. When you stated in the beginning that you would add a hardship, I am curious what that hardship would consist of. Is that a hardship that would go for the city, in favor of the city, for the city to use for golf courses or the pool, or for city equipment? Or is that a hardship for city residents who can't afford certain equipment? I think people like me, are kind of curious. What is that hardship? Is that something that we can apply for? I think you can elaborate a little bit on that. That would be great. Also, Councilwoman Little and Ms. Patel in the beginning were talking about the mix of the oil and gas and how these engines are so bad. And I definitely agree with that. I think that things should change. And I'm not saying that, against the ordinance completely, that, things are bad for the environment. But we're talking about two-stroke engines. And people need to understand the difference between a two-stroke engine and a four-stroke engine. So the two-stroke engines, I believe, should be put in an ordinance and say, we can start with that and let's ban that in the city of Summit. Okay, so those are the mixture of the oil and the gas. The four-stroke engines are not. So they have improved those, and those standards are up to date, and they're not as bad as the two-stroke engines that you're referring to. So when we talk about that in the community, I think it's really informative for people who don't understand the difference when you talk about a gas blower, the difference in what type of blower we're using. So a lot of people have the four-stroke engines and they're using those and they're much better for the environment. Yes, there's still a gas blower, but I have a gas snow blower I use, and I'm not getting rid of my snow blower when I have, feet of snow or 2 feet of snow that I have to use to remove the snow from my sidewalk or my driveway. So, I got rid of my two-stroke blower years ago, and I have a four-stroke. So I think there's things that the city can do without completely eliminating blowers from people, and for the lawn care companies to say, okay, these are steps. We don't need the big mega blowers that they push on the lawn. They can use the four-stroke. So I think, instead of completely banning it, that might be a step. And I also think, having the mayor's opinion and having some feedback from her, how she feels on it, is really important as well. So Mayor Redis, I really feel that, your engagement in the community is really vital. I think a lot of us look for your input is really important. So I think some of those questions that we're all trying to look on is saying, yes, I think the noise ordinance, we should try to change and amend to it so people can have their quiet, but that's going to all go back when we all start going back to work. The electric blowers are still very noisy. People are still going to get their stuff blown onto their neighbor's lawn if somebody's using it. I think, we can amend our noise ordinance now.
Ms. Gagnon, I'm going to ask you to finish. Your 3 minutes are up.
So if you could just address those couple questions, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Let's see. Marcus McNamara. Go ahead, Mr. McNamara. Oh, it's saying, okay, I have to promote you to a panelist. Okay, let's try that. Go ahead, Mr. McNamara. Can you hear us? Okay, we're not hearing you. We can see you now, but we can't hear you. Can you unmute? We can't hear you, Mr. McNamara. Madam Clerk, can you see anything on your end that can help us with this? Okay, I think we're going to have to move on to another commenter and we'll come back to you, okay? I don't know how else to address this. If you'd like to, I think you can phone in. Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
That is correct.
Can you give the number? Do you know what the number is?
There are several on the notice.
On the
Give me
list.
1 second.
Okay, so in the meantime, I'm going to call on, or if you have it right now, you can give it to Mr. McNamara, and then we'll jump to the next person and come back to him while he's phoning in.
Yep, just give me 1 second. It looks like he's gone.
Okay. Do you want to, okay. Do you want to just announce that number? Do you have it? Maybe he can
Yeah,
hear.
let me just go really quick. For some reason, I got kicked off of my computer at work.
Or you could stick it in do we have a chat? We don't have a chat function, do we? No. Okay. You know what? While you're working on that, why don't I go ahead and I'll recognize Abe Casbo and we'll come back. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Casbo, go ahead.
Hi, good evening, Council and Mayor, and thanks so much for your hard work on this. I want to say that I'm fully supportive of the ban, but I do want to know how we're going to enforce the noise. I also want to say, I think there was a comment made earlier about, Bristol Myers Squibb. That particular noise happens literally 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's just the degree of the noise, right? So I think we have to be careful about how we frame this issue, but I am absolutely fully supportive of what you guys are trying to do. I know it's not easy, but I think it would make Summit a better place. But I'm interested in hearing about how we would enforce the noise ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Do you have a number for Mr. Mcnamara now, Madam Clerk?
I do.
Okay.
Hopefully he can hear me and he has a pen and paper ready.
Okay.
One of the phone numbers is 1-312-626-6799. The webinar ID is 896-1571-8354. And the passcode is 259934.
Wow. Okay. That's a lot of numbers.
Yes.
All right. While he's working on that, we'll recognize our next the next person, which is John Calabrese, I think it is. Go ahead, Mr. Calabrese.
Yes, it's me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. John Calabrese, 8 Yale Street, and son of previously voiced Joy Calabrese. I'd like to thank you guys for putting all this together, and definitely all the hard work that you guys have done in looking into this. I too am against this this proposed temporary ban, only because that it's just not spelled out correctly. There's not enough detail in the ordinance. It's a broad brush stroke. I think that there can be a better way of doing this. I think that, yes, landscapers have a lot to do with it, but what happens when you need a roof replaced? What happens when you get mulch for your backyard? Or what happens in the summer when you want to reseal your driveway? You have to blow down your driveway, and electric blowers just aren't efficient at that. I do agree that gas blowers are inefficient and they're environmental, quote unquote, hazards, but there's a lot of other environmental hazards that are much worse. And I don't think that there are any, let's say, definitive studies that prove that 2-cycle engines or blowers or weed whackers, for that matter, have a direct impact on the user's health. I don't think you can pull that specifically out. One of the things that I do want to ask the council is, if this does pass, the study parameters, who is on the panel? Is this all going to be above board? Who's going to be on the panel? What are those people's qualifications? As far as the parameters themselves, what are they? Okay, for the continual or suspected, year-round ban that everybody's talking about, that I don't believe is going to happen, but a yearly summer ban or something like that. What are we moving towards here? What do you expect to get out of this this pilot? Is the public going to have a vote? How are you evaluating in this time? Are you making noise volume measurements around the city? Are you going to talk to not only landscapers, not only let's call them bigger landscapers, but smaller landscapers, smaller business people, contractors, like I said, roofers sometimes use leaf blowers.
Your time is up. Could you please wrap up?
Sure. I just want to make sure that the study parameters are, will be clear, will be available afterwards. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Polly Thomas, go ahead.
Sorry, Council President Fox, I believe we have Mr. McNamara back.
Okay, so we will, I just recognized Dr. Thomas, so why don't we take her and then we'll go back to Mr. McNamara. I didn't see him up in the corner there. So
he popped up.
I'm sorry, Mr. McNamara. I'll be really quick. I just want to make it, I'm Polly Thomas. I live at 22 Laurel Ave. I've been here for about 35 years. I'm a pediatrician. I also teach public health. I'm not an occupational environmental health expert, but there is no question that leaf blowers, especially the gas-powered leaf blowers, are bad for health, especially for the men and women who are using them. The 85 decibel level is sufficient. That's the level at which there is permanent damage to hearing if you're exposed for 2 hours or more. And the fumes are, dangerous for the people that are right next to the leaf blower, and also they're, spreading into our air and making the air worse. So I just wanted to make sure that it was clear that there are health detriments, especially to the workers, but also to the neighborhoods. And one more thing, the only electric leaf blowers are not the only solution. And I know I'm not an expert on that either, but I know the Environmental Commission could weigh in there. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Dr. Thomas. And now we'll move on to Marcus McNamara. Go ahead, Mr. McNamara.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Terrific.
All right, great. Sorry about that technical glitch. But yeah, I just wanted to weigh in. I'm against the ban, lifelong resident, 51 years in Summit. My family's been in Summit for a long time. My great-grandfather was chief of police in Summit. A lot of fire department members. All kinds of stuff. My question is, has anybody researched putting a governor on a leaf blower? Is there such a thing? I don't know. Has anybody talked to try to arrange their neighbors so, these landscapers can alternate so it's not 15 landscapers all at the same time? I'm a painting contractor in town. I've had my business for 25 years. I use tools. They damage my hearing. I'm a big boy. I understand that. I was in the Marine Corps. I fired 50 caliber machine guns. I understood that was going to hurt my hearing, I'm not totally opposed to this ban. I just feel like there should be more research. I feel like there should be more community information given. I'm bilingual. I speak Spanish. I could talk to a lot of the Costa Rican guys and Spanish guys who may not be aware of this. I will volunteer my time to make sure that they're aware of this ban because it will affect their livelihood. Again, it's not the end of the world. I'm not totally against this ban, but I think that more research should be put into it. More people should be made aware of it. And, there was, in my business, we had to use HEPA-Vax, and it was a statewide thing. I understood. It makes sense. You know what I mean? Lead paint is dangerous, so you should use a HEPA-Vax when you're sanding lead paint. But this, to me, I don't know. It just doesn't seem very transparent, and I'd like more information. Again, I appreciate what all you guys doing. And if anything, the good thing about this is I'm more interested in city government now than I was ever before. I really, you kind of sparked my interest, and I'm not sure of all the inner workings and all that, but I do appreciate your time and the work that you guys put in. But I just, I vote for more time, more research, more information to the public, more transparency. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you, Mr. McNamara. Before you go, we need to get your address also, please.
7 Irving Place.
Great. Okay. And I hope you'll come back and join us at future council meetings. So it's nice, there is a civics benefit to this. So thank you for joining us. Okay.
All right.
So we got one more comment. Carol Pactang. Dr. Pactang, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Carol Pactang at 234 Summit Avenue. What I hear a lot of around this controversy is that there is a better way. Well, yes, that's why I appreciate that this is, there may be, you know, I appreciate that this is a pilot. I trust in this amazing council that we have, that they have considered the research and done due diligence in looking at this as a pilot. And I trust that they'll look at the data from the pilot. And so, you know, I think we hear a lot of people offering things after the fact. I trust that you have all thoughtfully put this forward, strategically put this out, and have put out the information. But, you know, people get the information at different points. I understand that people can feel that this wasn't put out there, but the information was out there. But I do hope, like as Mr. Mcnamara just shared, I hope that people do become more civically engaged and that they see these things and get more engaged. And I look forward to seeing what the data from the pilot shows and how we can move forward to make Summit a nicer sounding place, a cleaner place, a healthier place for all of our citizens. And I think that is the point of all of this, and which I, again, appreciate all those points of trying to make our city a better place to live that we can be proud of. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Pecting. Moving on, we've got Jonathan. Go ahead. You can go ahead and unmute.
Unmute.
Go ahead.
You are muted.
Go.
Press.
You're now unmuted. We can hear
Okay.
you.
Okay. It's my husband's computer, but I'm speaking. So I'm Dale Ryer. I live at 5 Stacy Court, and I am strongly in favor of this proposed ban. I'm very impressed with all the research that has been done by the council, and I would just like to address a couple of points that some people have made in opposition. One, that they question how this is going to be enforced. Well, we don't know how it will be enforced, but we've all been on a highway when someone goes by at 100 miles an hour and never gets a ticket, and then we get pulled over for going 70. And that's just life. And we have to count on people doing the right thing. Sometimes people are going to get away with using the gas-powered blowers, even though they shouldn't. But that's not a reason not to have an ordinance. As to the fact that there are all these other noises, yes, but they're necessary. We need our roofs repaired. There's no alternative. There are alternatives to gas-powered leaf blowers. And as to measuring the effects, well, we know the decibels that are emitted by these blowers. We know we can estimate how many hours a week they are blowing. And we know then that we're not being exposed to that much noise over that period of time. You don't need science to, or anything to figure that out. It's difficult to prove a negative, but if there's no noise, and we'll all feel it. I guess, I think, was there one more thing? I think that's it. Well, I'm sure there are other things, but I just think that, the last thing, research. People think there should be more research. Okay, do more research, but why not? We know how much pollution is emitted. We know how much noise is emitted. So why don't we enjoy the benefits of not having that while we do the research instead of the other way around? Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Ryer. Are there any other comments? Okay. Mimi Zukov. Go ahead, Ms. Zukov.
Hi, my name is Mimi Zukov, 49 Wade Drive in Summit. I've been a resident of Summit since 1986. So many things have been discussed tonight, and I am very much in favor of this ban. I think it will improve our lives and our health. But also, I was hoping that the members of council could explain, when you do the explanations at the end of the meeting, the process. So people have been suggesting that this is the beginning of a slippery slope to ban all kinds of things, or to make this a year-round ban on gas leaf blowers. And I have come to understand that there would be a process for that. And I'm hoping you can address what the process would be should the council decide, after the pilot program to make it a permanent program, please. And that's all I wanted to say tonight. But thank you to our members of council who give so many hours of their personal time to this city. I wish that every person that has spoken against this ban or for this ban tonight and over the past several weeks on Facebook would volunteer their time the way our council members do to help our city.
Thank you, Ms. Zukoff. Are there any other comments from members of the public? Okay, I don't see any other members of the public, so I'm going to now turn it over to Councilmember Little, who is going to address, she's going to take her crack at addressing a lot of these comments that have been, the questions that have been asked. And then I will allow Mayor Radis to respond to the questions that have been asked to her and any other members of council who want to say anything as well. So go ahead, Councilmember Little.
So first of all, I want to say thank you to everyone who's engaged in this process. I thought the comment by Mr. Mcnamara, Council President said the same thing, but his comment about, this has been great because he's become more aware of how the city process works and wants to get more involved in the city government. I mean, that says it all. And I really appreciate that comment. And I hope that everyone on the call appreciates that. And that segues into me answering a number of these questions, which are more about process. So first, we have a representative style of government, and that's what we do. And so a number of people said, well, why don't we just put this up for a vote citywide? But we have a representative form of government. And the way that works is that you elect people that represent you. There's different people from different areas of the city on this council. We all come from different backgrounds. We all bring different things to the table. And we've all agreed to run for office, and you have entrusted us with making decisions. As you saw earlier in this meeting, we made a decision about extending a cap bank on our budget. We're going to make a lot more decisions. If you want to, hopefully everyone will stick around and hear my other ordinance that's up for hearing, as well as my 11 resolutions that I'll be introducing tonight on different issues that have been brought forward that we need to decide on. And with every issue, we do our homework, we do our research, we reach out to our constituents, we listen, and we try to make the very best decisions. And I want to go back to that point that every decision we make is a balance. The most non-controversial issue I can think of, microblading our city roads, to micropaving our city roads to keep the life on the city road, still has a cost that is associated with it. And we have to balance and make sure that cost makes sense in the terms of all the other things that we want to do. And we are always balancing everything. This is a case where we really do need to make a difficult decision in the balance, because we have all these residents telling us of the harm that's being done. And then we have all these residents saying, please don't do anything about that harm or mitigate it to the greatest extent possible, which is what we've tried to do. The process that we went about that is that we don't always form an ad hoc committee. Sometimes, as you saw in the last ordinance, sometimes things come up through the committee and we vote on it and it's done. We don't always form an ad hoc committee. We form that when we feel as on council that we don't have all the knowledge that we need to make the proper decision without some input from members of the community. Someone asked how many ad hoc committees there are. There isn't a standing number. We form the ad hoc means that they're for the specific situation. So when a situation comes up where we feel like it would be helpful, we form an ad hoc committee. We've done that for, as one of the commenters said, for power outages in response. We've done it for the transfer station use. And, as I said, we have other advisory committees that are more standing committees that help us on issues. None of those, though, a couple people said those are deliberative bodies and that we didn't put enough people on it. Those are not deliberative bodies. None of the ad hoc committees or advisory committees are deliberative. This council is deliberative. And we do everything in an extremely transparent way, like we're doing right now, where we're discussing this in front of you. We're taking your comments. We have been responding to constituents, in great numbers and details over the last few weeks. I can tell you that I have never discussed a topic as thoroughly as I have discussed this. I know more about gas powered leaf blowers. I have read golf course maintenance articles. I mean, we have done this in an incredibly transparent way. And that's what we do. I do take issue with a couple of the commenters who are asking us or questioning the way we chose the ad hoc committee or casting aspersions on the people who agreed to sit on this ad hoc committee. I'm going to take issue with that. We reached out to certain people who had approached us in the past with knowledge about leaf blowers and asked them to help us with this. We also reached out to 2 landscapers because we did want to hear the other side. Neither of the landscapers that helped us with this were in favor of a ban, but they did advise us on what measures we could take that would be of the least impact to landscaping businesses. They weren't advocating for a certain position. They didn't have any skin in the game. They didn't get any benefit from this. And I'm not going to name them because, and partially because of all the backlash and some of the comments that have happened on social media. They were merely helping us and advising us and answering questions we had about this process and about how these businesses work so that we could make a good decision. They weren't part of the decision-making process. They were there to help us and advise us. So that's how the process works. And the ad hoc committee is formed just to help us. And then we make the decisions. As to the fact that this is not transparent, we have been talking about this issue at public meetings, during my time on council. And certainly there have been public comments and we've been discussing this publicly several times since the spring. I have talked about this openly. I have talked about forming this ad hoc committee. This has been both Councilmember Nadeau and I made posts that we put on our council pages that explained what we had done and the process that we went through. The city put out a question and answer that we read and contributed to that went through the process. This is how our government works. We have been incredibly transparent and above board with this. If anyone wants more of research, it's widely available. And if you would like to contact me directly, I'm happy to pass on some of the research that we found during our deliberations and answer your questions. There were a couple of questions about how this will be enforced. We have written into the ordinance that can be enforced by either the police or the code enforcement officers during this ban period. So, if there were, it could be enforced in any number of ways. It might be a call into dispatch, the non-emergency number, please, at the police department, not the emergency number. Or it could be a see, click, fix report. It could be a call into community services. And then an officer, either a police officer or code enforcement officer, could go to the scene and see that the leaf blowers were being used. The first violation is just a warning. We wrote that in particularly so that we could be, this could be kind of an education process during this trial ban. And the code enforcement officers and the police department will work together to do that. Our police department is fully capable of dealing with all kinds of issues. They are an excellent police force. They are fully capable of dealing with this as our code enforcement officers. We do not need to hire anyone else or put any other kind of system in place for this. How are we going to measure the success of this pilot project and what happens going forward? Well, we're going to measure it the same way that we're doing now. We're going to take public comments about how it went. We are going to reach out and do engagement with local landscapers and businesses and get input from them. And we are going to evaluate it. And then, are we going to just, I think someone said, we're going to somehow make a decision or is the committee going to make a decision about whether to make this permanent? If we were to, if based on the pilot program, we were to want to make it permanent or want to go forward in a more permanent way, it would happen the same way that this ban is being discussed. There would be public discussion at council meetings. And if we decided to go forward, there would be an ordinance, it would be introduced. 2 weeks later, we would have a public hearing with public comment the same way as this, and we would vote. So it's the same process. And it's all, again, very above and beyond. A few people asked why we didn't come up with a more balanced solution or why we didn't look at alternatives. We looked at many alternatives. We looked at restricting days that the leaf blowers could be used. The landscapers that we worked with told us that that would be very detrimental to their business. We looked at time restrictions. That would be detrimental. The people asked, why don't you just enforce the noise ordinance? Well, as we heard, the noise ordinance itself and measuring the noise and enforcing on that is very difficult to do because you have to go out to the scene with a noise calibrator that's done by the Board of Health. Then they have to make a report to the police department. It's a long process to just enforce on the actual decibels. And if we did that, that would basically eliminate the use of any gas leaf blower in the city of Summit year round. So we didn't think that that was an appropriate way to do it. Instead, we are limiting on the gas blowers. Why? How many complaints have we gotten? As I stated before, we had approximately a dozen complaints that came in the spring and the summer. That's more than we get on a lot of issues, and it was enough to trigger, especially with the ongoing nature of complaints about these that have been going on for several years. It was enough to trigger us to look at this. We have definitely taken action on far less. Does this apply to city contractors and to our city pool and our municipal golf course? Yes, to all of the above. We are going to, the city, we're not planning on passing this to apply to everyone else except for the city. And then finally, I think the major other question is how will the exemption work? I mean, this is, again, why didn't we consider other things? Why didn't we do this a different way? We have really taken into effect the complaints that we got from so many residents about the harm this is causing, and we tried to craft it as narrowly as possible. And I don't know a way to craft it more narrowly. We're doing it for only 3 months. Many municipalities do it for longer periods of time. Some municipalities ban them year round. We said just the 3 months in the summer. It is a pilot. It is not permanent right now. It is a pilot, a test. We also have a warning as the first violation instead of a hefty fine, as many jurisdictions have done. Once this, if this passes tonight, there will be a lot of engagement, and a lot of our communications officer for the city does an excellent job of putting out lots of information. There will be lots of notice between now and June 1st about the fact that this is going into effect. We've really tried to craft it as narrowly as possible. And even with that, when we started hearing public comment, we said, okay, there are some specific situations where maybe there would be specific harm that is caused by this 3-month ban, even during the summer. And so we are going to put in place, and we're going to introduce at next meeting, an exemption application, so that if there is a specific hardship that is the not foreseen that would happen during this summer, you can apply for an exemption hardship, and we will craft an exemption for you that applies to that specific situation. And that is how we are handling that. So I can't imagine a way that we could be more reasonable to the people against the ban while still addressing the needs of the people who are really expressing the fact that they are harmed by the noise and the pollution. So I hope that, again, I think I've answered all the questions. If anyone else on council, thinks I've missed anything, feel free to jump in. But I do appreciate everyone's engagement. I hope that everyone is respectful of the time and effort that went into this, and especially the people that helped us on the ad hoc committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, got it. Thank you, Councilmember Little. That was a tour de force answering all those questions. I'm going to now turn it over to I guess I'll turn it over to whatever council member or the mayor, whoever wants to speak next. I'll perhaps Councilmember Naidu, as the other member of the committee, the Capital Projects Committee, should be our next person up.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you to Councilwoman Little for going through and I think answering almost all of the questions. I'll just, a couple of things I heard that I wasn't sure that was answered. One is about whether anybody does their own lawn work. I do my own lawn work. And I did it when I was a kid. I've used landscapers. I don't think any of the landscapers that spoke tonight, I will honestly say that I don't think I've used any of you guys, but I've used some here in town, and now I do my own, and probably my lawn shows it, but I actually enjoy doing my own lawn work. I enjoy gardening. I get a lot of therapy for it. I enjoy being out there. So I do appreciate the hard work that goes, that when people have to go out, do this for a living, I understand how difficult it is, a job for them. I also appreciate what a difficult industry it is for those who are in it. I was very, I was very surprised actually to get the letter that we did from the Landscapers Association that had actually sued the township of Maplewood when they passed, and was surprised completely by how complimentary they were, because I think they understood, and I hope that folks here understood, that we have tried to take as balanced and a middle ground as we can in addressing different concerns. I pilot programs, and Councilwoman Little spoke about this, but I'll give a historical analogy. I hope it's helpful. When we did in 2016 the Parklet program, that was called a pilot program, and I think the only other person that was on council at that time, besides myself, is the mayor, and she will recall, I think, as I do, that there were a lot of opposition to it. People were that we're taking away parking on Springfield Avenue. At that time, I think we still had the movie theater, and people were like, why are you doing this? This makes no sense. We already have a parking problem in the downtown, and you guys are trying to destroy downtown business. And that was, almost everybody was negative towards it. But that council, where I had just started, took, I think, a very difficult but courageous step at that point in time and said, you know what, notwithstanding that parking was the perennial issue at that time that people always were complaining about, that this was something different and we would try it out because there was a basis for thinking that this would somehow improve downtown businesses. Look, not that we were prescient then, certainly not to know there would be a pandemic, but because we did that, because we had taken those steps, we were able, when we needed to now, have both the infrastructure, the knowledge, the ability to immediately turn and say, okay, we know what we're doing when people want a parklet and how to set it up and what's going on. And the process, we already had forms in place. It helped to get that done. Sometimes I understand that change can be difficult, but sometimes you try these things. Sometimes it'll work, sometimes it won't. But that pilot program, we did the same thing, which was we got feedback at the end of it. We determined the difference between quality of life improvement versus business harm, and we balanced it between the two to see how it turns out. And that's what we'll do here as well. We'll do a balancing approach like we've tried to do with introducing it. We'll do a balancing approach when we evaluate it to see what will happen. I think we all recognize, I certainly recognize, that the industry is not there to have all year round a ban. That, some people are afraid of an all year round ban. That's not on the table. That's not even being discussed, because we all recognize what's possible and what's not possible. We try to live in the real world here of what can be done and what cannot be done. And so in that context, I want to put at least people's minds at rest when they hear on social media, this is, going to go some other direction. It's not. It's limited in nature now. It'll be limited in nature in the future if it's so adopted. But this sunsets at the end of this summer, and we'll take an evaluation after that, and people will make a decision. The last thing I want to say is, two other things. One is that about hardship exemption. That's something, as Councilwoman Little said, we'll introduce an amendment to this ordinance, assuming that it's passed tonight, that will address it. And a lot of the things that people said as far as different industries that may need to use it, in my mind, that's what you'd have a hardship. What you're going to have a specific use for a specific limited period of time. You're not going to try to expect somebody to be able to get some piece of equipment for just one little piece of time. So that to me makes sense. But the last thing I will say is about the nature of this discussion tonight. And I would compliment all the speakers, whether you were for or against, in the respectful way that we had a discussion here tonight. And I think hopefully everybody heard that there was more nuance in people's positions than what would be reported in social media. And for those of you who don't know, I have been somewhat critical of having discussion and dialogue on social media. And this is precisely why. Because when you hear your fellow residents actually speak and discuss things, people all think about yeah, there's a little bit here and there that we can give and we can figure out a way. That's what's compromise. That's government. Effective government is people compromising. An effective community is people compromising. And when we have whether this issue or the next hot button issue, having people argue it through, just few sentences without any knowledge about the people or their backgrounds or where they're coming from leads to more of a splitting apart of the community. I would suggest respectfully to all of you who are out there who talk about this on social media, think about the discussion you heard tonight. Think about the people who opposed it, who said, yeah, I oppose this. I don't think it's a good idea, but I recognize the fact that it has health consequences and has noise consequences. And on the other side, the people who support it, who recognize the impact that it can have on businesses. We're not that far apart, folks, but we need to try to get ourselves together, especially on these types of topics, and not do it through, arguing on social media. So I want to really thank people who came out tonight, who had a very respectful and thoughtful position. I hope you come away thinking that your council does listen to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Naidoo. So I'll now turn it over to Mayor Radist.
Thank you, Council President. I want to thank Council for having put so much time and energy into researching this issue and thinking carefully about it and getting a lot of information from many members of the community. I think it's a good idea to implement in our community. My only concern is the timing, and whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, I have not been able to look at anything in our community in the last 13 months without looking at it through the lens of the pandemic. And so I question the timing. However, listening to the announcement tonight of a hardship exemption is a very good idea. And I am confident that Council will, if this ordinance is passed tonight, they'll amend it next week or 2 weeks from now to have the hardship exemption, which will address my concerns about timing. As I said, it's very hard to think about anything like this that might hurt either a resident or a business when I'm looking at everything through the lens of a pandemic for the last 13 months. That said, I know Council has done a lot of work and a lot of research, and I'm very confident in their ability to do the right thing by our residents. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mayor Radist. Are there any other comments from Councilmember Little?
I just briefly wanted to respond to the mayor because we thought a lot about timing too, and there was, and that would maybe was one question that I didn't answer, is why aren't we waiting till next summer? And I would say that last spring, when people approached, we started getting all the comments, that's when we said we can't do this right now because there's too much uncertainty. And we really need to look at this issue very, very carefully and see what the best approach is. And that's what we did. But I would say that I think that in our committee, we were also looking through the eyes of what's going on in the pandemic. And because there's so many people working from home and so many kids working, trying to do school from home, that they've been really harmed. They've expressed to us in some really heartfelt emails how much the noise and the disturbance has impacted them. And I would say waiting another year isn't fair to them, to all the people that reached out to us and really asked us to please address this during this time when there are more people home and trying to work and study from home, that we really were thinking about it through the eyes of the pandemic when we decided to do it this summer instead of waiting till some future time.
Thank you, Councilmember Little. Are there any other comments from members of council? Councilmember Hairston, go ahead.
Thank you, Council President. I don't want to belabor this any longer. I think this was an outstanding process. I want to thank you for moderating it in such a thorough way, Council President, and also Council Member Little for the amazing way in which you can synthesize all of that information and give that back. There are two things that I want to highlight as a major concern for me. that I had no idea that there was no one who didn't hate the sound of leaf blowers. And so that's why I want us to be cognizant of the bubbles that we all live in, because as I have stated at other council meetings, I was one of those early on complaining about the noise. And so I want us to be aware of what I wrote about in my blog, saying that as many people are for things, you ought to be aware that there possibly are others who are against something. And so, but what I did want to emphasize was the enforcement aspect of it, because I think that is an important consideration that was discussed early on in safety and health, because where I sit from the public health standpoint, it's a no-brainer for me when you have a doctor who says that the emissions is of a health concern and the decibel level is of a health concern. Then I'm like, okay, how is it going to be enforced? And that's where I want to highlight the thoughtfulness of our police chief and of our new director, Aaron Schrager, who spent time thinking about this and were also responsive, that it will not be a way to penalize, but it will be in an education fashion. However, and it won't be the workers, the owners will be the ones who are on notice that they have to look out for their workers. There's a health concern here that has to be considered. And so I just want to put that on the table as just an important responsibility that we as your elected officials have, because people think it's only because a few people make complaints. It's not. It's also because our CDC and at the state level, our public health commissioner, they raise these concerns, and it's our obligation to put them into place in a way that meets our municipal needs. So I just want to emphasize those 2 points and thank everyone, and especially the people who called in. It was things that were on my mind were clarified, and I appreciate the public debate.
Thank you, Councilmember Hairston. And now Councilmember O'Sullivan, go ahead.
Thank you, Council President. I want to start off by thanking our citizens for their concern, their interest, and their commentary, whether publicly here tonight, via email, or on social media. I've read or listened to them all, and I appreciate the range of thoughts and ideas. I want to thank our Capital Projects and Community Services Committee and the ad hoc committee that was formed to deal with this issue. There was a lot of careful thought that went into this ordinance. The research discussed tonight is widely available on gas-powered leaf blowers, and the common thread is very clear. Gas-powered leaf blowers are really noisy and dirty machines. That's it. Okay, so I am for small business. I am for our landscapers. I am for cleaner air, and I am for a quieter community. All of these things can exist this summer. Gas-powered leaf blowers are really noisy, and for 9 months of the year, they are almost a daily occurrence. The use of gas-powered leaf blowers by homeowners and landscaping crews creates an overlap of noise so that we can hear them for several hours a day. And there is no escape, even indoors, as the low frequency roar penetrates every wall in your home. A 3-month pause on gas-powered leaf blowers is a reasonable sacrifice for a quieter and cleaner community. We don't have to live with this noise and pollution for the summer. We have a choice. And I am curious about the results of this 3-month pilot program and what it will reveal. Judging by public comments tonight, this ordinance Establishing a 3-month pilot program doesn't make everyone happy. There are some who think this ordinance doesn't go far enough. There are some that are okay with the status quo. I think we have found the right balance for Summit. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilmember O'Sullivan. Are there any other comments from members of council? Councilmember Allen.
Thank you, Council President. So I had an open mind coming in tonight. My personal opinion is that I've listened to gas leaf blowers on the weekends. And when I got home today, I got home from work late, came home. I thought I'd have 10 or 15 minutes of peace and quiet. And the minute I sat on my couch, I could hear a leaf blower. And I was like, the universe is telling me something. So I want to extend my appreciation to everyone who's called in tonight, who's written in, who shared their opinion. Like my colleagues, I completely empathize and sympathize with the noise and the health hazards posed by the gas leaf blowers. As a matter of fact, whether you're inside your home or outside your home, the noise is tough to escape. And it's become somewhat incessant. I'm always noticing when I'm walking around the neighborhood, you can find yourself walking through plumes of dirt and dust, oftentimes because people don't turn the leaf blowers off when you're walking by. Like I said, I had an open mind coming in tonight. I wasn't a yes or a no. I have spoken with numerous friends and neighbors. I've reached out to a couple landscaping companies. I've read all the opinions that everybody sent in. And I want to say that I truly appreciate everyone's concern from all angles on this, which is a somewhat complicated issue because I say it's complicated because it's a peek into what we are trying to do for our community and how we're trying to shape the future. And there's nothing more important than that. And there's nothing more important than having diversity of voices weighing in. I give a lot of credit to Councilwoman Little, Councilman Nadeau, the CAP committee, the ad hoc committee for working really hard on this initiative and commend them on their due diligence. They have always been open and willing to take my calls. I had a lot of questions, so anytime I texted them, they were willing to take my phone call. And I respect that the gas leaf blowers are going to be eventually a thing of the past. I mean, we're moving towards a greener economy, and I'm happy that it's being considered as a pilot rather than a permanent ban. But there are two things that have been weighing on my mind and that I'm struggling with. And I think that is one, when I was walking around and I was talking to people and calling them, someone said to me, they're like, I can't believe you would take this piece of equipment away from me on a weekend. I just bought this gas leaf blower and I really want to be able to use it in my yard. And the other thing was, I'm concerned about enforcement. I think Danny was just talking about that. How are we going to enforce it? Are we going to turn neighbor on neighbor? I don't know if anybody can cover that a little bit more, Chief Bartolotti, or if we're past that point. But I felt like at a time that we've been hiding in our houses and we haven't been rallying around each other, I'm concerned about neighbors turning on neighbors. So I'm speaking from my heart. I think you've done a fantastic job. I do have some concerns. And so I just wanted to throw that out there that it's been a very difficult back and forth for me listening to whether I should vote yes or no tonight.
Thank you, Council Member Allen. Council Member Vartan, go ahead.
Thank you, Council President. I think we've well established the facts of the matter here that gas-powered leaf blowers are horrible. They're bad for the people who operate them. They're bad for the people who have to breathe in the fumes from them, and they're incredibly annoying. When considering the role of government as it relates to this ordinance, there are two important things to me. First is this idea of responsibility to do something. We've been receiving complaints from residents for years. If we don't do something about it, who will? Second is the consideration of whether council has done anything like this before. Since the city was founded, council has passed rules that govern the city. Things like how fast people can drive, the types of businesses we want in town, how houses and storefronts should actually look and be designed. and the types of containers you can use to sell coffee all are examples of such rules. So to my mind, these things are all very similar. When the rubber meets the road, there are some clear practical implications to this ordinance. A couple of examples. First, some people won't be able to use their gas-powered leaf blower for 90 days. That is a sacrifice. And I have heard loudly and clearly the voices of the people who don't think that that is fair. But I have also heard loudly and clearly the voices of those people who think they deserve to enjoy their property in peace and quiet. I've heard the voices of those who say they want their kids to be able to walk home from school without breathing in dust and pollutants. And I've heard the voices of those who say they care for the environment and want us to do our part to protect it. My other practical concern, which has been expressed, is the use of time for our law enforcement. I have the utmost respect for the Summit Police Department, and I know that everyone in this community shares that sentiment, which is why I hope and believe that if this ordinance passes, people will do the right thing, and they will not waste the time of our police by flagrantly breaking the law. Finally, the only way to find out if this makes a meaningful impact is to try it. It's 90 days. And after that, I think we should look at the numbers on enforcement, we should look at the number of complaints, and we should have another robust conversation. When we have that next conversation, we're going to have a much better idea of what a post-pandemic summit will look like. As Councilwoman Little has stated numerous times, this is all about balance. It's about balancing the day-to-day management of this pandemic with leading for the future. And I think this conversation is about leading for the future of what Summit will look like. As Gail Woolcott from the New Jersey Landscapers Association says, this is a reasonable and equitable measure for landscapers, landscape professionals, and our constituents. I'm voting in support of this for that reason, and I know that we will get through this, we will see how it goes, and we will move on. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Vartan. Councilmember Naidu.
Thank you, Council President. Through you, I would like to ask either Aaron or the chief or both, because Councilwoman Allen had a question, and I don't want her question. I can see that she's struggling to analyzing, and I think that question is an important one, and it's been kind of touched upon by a number of people. I think Councilwoman Hairston also raised the issue of enforcement, and Councilman O'Sullivan. So why don't we talk a little bit with the chief and Aaron? Folks, I think you guys have started a discussion internally, so why don't you just enlighten a little bit about where you are?
Sure, I'll take that first one if you don't mind, Council President.
That's great. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. All right. Excuse me. So the proposed ordinance, as you all know, it permits enforcement by either the police department or the Department of Community Services. Both Director Schrager and I have discussed that if this ordinance does pass this evening, we have several meetings set up with our respective staff to decide exactly how we're going to monitor this enforcement and how we're going to track, as many of you has said with the first warning. What we're looking at preliminary is that DCS, the Community Services, will handle all calls that come in through their desk, either directly through their phone lines or through the C-Click Fix program during normal business hours, Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 4:30. Police Department will also be responding to calls that come in through our dispatch center, and as was stated out by several of you, through the non-emergency line as well. Of course, we have to understand that call volume for the police department and staffing levels on any given particular moment that one of these calls comes in will take priority over one of these noise complaint or leaf blower usage calls. We will be coordinating with DCS to come up with some kind of metrics for monitoring warnings that are being issued. And I believe it was Councilmember Hairston that stated that we're looking at the ownership of the businesses and not so much the workers themselves. Aaron, anything to add from your side?
No, thank you, Chief. Yeah, DCS would intend to keep the database. We're not going to overhaul any systems we have for tracking at this time. So we'd have a simple database. We'd work out something with police. So if there are warnings issued on the weekend, I would designate 2 people in community services that would be sent those reports just so we could track them in. And we would use that to throughout the pilot program to evaluate the number of warnings and who we've spoken to.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Schrager and Chief Bartolotti. Was there anything else that you had, Councilmember Naidu?
No, thank you. I hope that helps Councilwoman Allen with regard to her question. So I leave it to her if she has a follow-up. But I think, look, all these types of programs, what happens is, and this happens with, now we've done this a number of times. Once things pass, there's a process that's put in place. Staff gets, because staff is not going to do work on stuff before it knows something is going to pass. But once things pass, if it passes tonight, then staff goes ahead, looks at what the ordinance provides for, sets up a process, and does things that follows what processes other communities do. There are best management practices. There are ways of figuring these things out. These aren't like we're building a rocket from scratch here. There's things that are already existing. And we've done other things where we track stuff and we figure things out. One of the things that we are going to have tonight, later on the admin committee, where Councilwoman Allen and I said, we're going to start a voluntary, we're going to have a resolution, hopefully it'll pass, we're going to have a voluntary sign up for landscapers. So there's a way that they get informed about all of this information beforehand. They'll know what's going on. Voluntary, people can join. If they don't want to join, that's up to them. But there's a way of getting information out to folks, so therefore they'll be informed. I hope that helps.
Councilmember Allen, did you have anything else you wanted to ask on this topic?
Through you, Council President, just one last. I appreciate the clarification on that. And just final comment, I'm struggling with the contingency of friends and neighbors who have just come out so boldly against it. And so that's it. But you guys have done a great job, and I respect all the work that's been done on it. So I'll put myself on mute.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Allen. Councilmember Little, go ahead.
I just wanted to respond to both of Councilmember Allen's points and just say, one, to the point, I think we discussed with residents who own these gas-powered leaf blowers. We understand we really struggle with that because we know that this is a little bit of a, not a little bit, it could be more of a hardship. It's why we put the exemption in place, and we limit it to 3 months. And I want to go back to one of the comments that was made by one of the people who are actually opposed, Ms. Gagnon. She said she has a big gas-powered snowblower that she uses in big snowstorms. And that's exactly, I think that's really analogous, because we aren't banning it during the spring and the fall when you really do may need more power to clean up. And you can still use the equipment for the purpose for which you really need it. We're limiting it to the period of time when we've been told by the people who use these all the time that you don't really need these to do the yard work, and that there's other methods that can be used in place that are not overly, it's not overly burdensome. So we are, we're not taking them away, and we're not forcing anyone to buy new equipment or anything else. They can still use them. We're just asking them to not use them during this limited period. And then on the enforcement, I want to go back to the fact that we have an excellent communications department in the city. And so if this is passed, there will be notices, there will be Facebook posts, there will be, as much communication as possible about the ban that's going into place. And I fully agree with Councilmember Vartan that we have great citizens in this community. And if we pass this and say that it's a ban for 3 months, I fully expect that, most of our most, if not all of our residents and our businesses will comply with the ban. So I don't think there's going to be a lot of neighbors, calling on neighbors or doing that. And I think those issues will be handled the way they always are. If someone doesn't know about the ban, a neighbor will probably walk over and say, did you know there's a ban in place? And, would you mind shutting it off until the ban's over? And that would be how it would be handled 99% of the time. And in the rare instance it's not, the police and the code enforcers are there to support it. So I would just respond to that.
Thank you, Councilmember Little. Are there any other comments from members of council? Okay, so I'm going to sort of wrap things up here. So I just want to point out that I know that there, we've, as Councilmember Little said, we are trying to balance the needs of the residents who have been asking us for this. And I served on the Environmental Commission since 2005, and I can tell you that at least for the past 8 or 9 years, on the Environmental Commission, we've been hearing from residents and talking to residents and waiting for the point when the technology got good enough that this would be possible to do. And the battery technology has improved, the leaf blower technology has improved. So, you know, there was a time where it was not possible to do this, but the technology is there. We have learned from other communities that there has not been a loss of businesses or any price hikes as a result of this, that the landscaping businesses have done okay. So, knowing all of those things and learning from what others have done. And also, we've just gotten a letter from the New Jersey Landscape Contractors Association where they say that the dates and times that we've chosen to limit the gas leaf blowers are workable and consider the need for this valuable tool during certain times of the year. And they also note, we also applaud your unbiased decision to apply these regulations to all users, not just landscape professionals. This is the same entity that sued the township of Maplewood over their leaf blower ordinance. They've looked at ours and they've said, this is doable, this is reasonable, it's well balanced and well thought out. I think it's very important to, when we hear residents saying this is bad for landscapers, here we have the Landscape Contractors Association in New Jersey, who is unsolicited telling us that this is doable. And it's the same information we got when we spoke to landscapers and asked, what is doable and, what will work. And we were told a 3-month pilot in the summer will work, that it's possible to do this work without using leaf blowers at all in the summer. And our contractors who do our city parks, while it's leaf season, they're doing spring cleanups, they're using gas blowers now, but they fully will comply in the, during the pilot period in this summer, they will be using only electric or battery operated leaf blowers, just like everyone else. We hold the city to the same standard. So I just want to clarify all of those things. I'm not going to belabor the point because I think it's been covered very well. I appreciate all the engagement of all the people who have called in and spoken and people who've sent in their emails. We really have spent a lot of time thinking about this and talking about it and researching and learning from other people. The Capital Projects Committee has done an amazing job of putting this all together. And at this point, there have been no additional comments in the written materials there's nothing additional that's been raised in the written materials that we haven't already addressed. So I'm going to ask the clerk to give us a count of people in favor, people against the leaf blower ordinance, based on our emails, the names of all the people who have written in. And then we will, at that point, we will close the hearing. And just for those of you who are new to this, once we close the hearing, we then will do one more hearing on another item before we come back to vote. So there will be a vote tonight, but it will be after we finish one more hearing, which should hopefully be briefer than this one. So Madam Clerk, I'm going to ask you to just read out the numbers and the names, please.
If everyone can please bear with me, there's about 158 names that I need to read. Okay. These are the emails that the clerk's office has received along with members of council and the mayor. I'm going to start with the neutral emails. We received 3. It was Janet Bodner, Thomas Brown, Glenda Z. Now to move on to the emails that we received for the residents that were in support of the ordinance. Forgive me if I mispronounce someone's name. Pamela Appel, Lisa Burkery, Ann Berman, Timothy Bridges, Jay Brinkeroff, Michael Brown, Lisa and Bob Campbell, Marilyn Chambeau, Francie Cho, Gina Del Jones, Tony DeNorcia, William DeVoe, Mary Dickey, Cindy DeMassimo, Rob Elliott, Elliot Fishman, Ruth Geis, Yolanda Fundora, Dorrit Gaber, Vito and Diane Gallo, Joan Gambro, Valerie Garcia, Riza Gorlick, Lisa Grattan, Elizabeth Haynes, Vivian Hardy, Serena Healy, Kate Henk, Ellen Hochberger, Karen Barnes Kaplan, Laura Nines, Judy Knott, July Coalhouse Diplas, Ellen and Eric Legoff, Maria and Michael Lordich, Beth Lovejoy, Catherine Linus, Dave and Colleen McCaffrey, Carolyn McGee, Jen Milnes, Nora Muller, John and Suzanne Nealon, Lauren Marie Rose Nelson, Ted Reuter with the Noise Free America, Gage and Stacy Olcott, David Ophel, Hannah Payne, Karen Peddle-Gale, Joe Porrick, Karen Rayhofer, Brandon and Catherine Wright, Mary Beth Robb, Gloria Ron Fornes, Rhoda Roper, Tina Rosen, Ann Rowe, Heidi Russell, Robert Ryan, Lacey Rizowski, Diana and Scott Sayer, Kristen Sanborn, Scott Schnipper, Emily Simon, Jutta Sealer, Amy and Stefan Schaffer, Deanna Smeltz, Steve Sohm, Rose Steinberg Thompson, Pauline Thomas, Ted and Ruth Tolles, Jim Vance, Gwen Van Volkenberg, Anthony Vishkowski, Barbara von Kempler, Karen Pillacker von Zelkwitz, Deb Ward, Pamela Zave, Mimi Zukov, Dominic Zarowski, and Amy Sotowoski. Those were the emails that we had received that were in support of the ordinance. The following list of names are the names that we received emails from who are against the ordinance. Shirley Amarillo, Helena Bastos, James Bennett, Prakriti Bhatia, Bill Callahan, Albert Costanenti from the Canoe Book Country Club, Joe Carone, Lauren Caruso, Tracy Klaus, Sean Cooksey, John Creel, Tony Crow, Charlie Cusimano, Jimmy De Silva, Andy DeFlippis, Elena Ditillo, Tom Dobashevsky, Catherine and Jonathan Dugla, Beverly Dorr Brown, David Fallon, Francis Felice, Michael Finnegan, Kim Fox, Joseph Gallegos, Michael Girard, Jeff Goldstein, Jen Gross, Karen Hadley, Deborah Halpern, Deborah Harwick, Kelly and James Hatfield, Thomas Inglesby, Jay Infantini, Jill Joseph, William Keene, Shobani and Kevin Kelly, Michael Kessel, David Kotiga, Douglas Kramer, Tena Lambricanos, John Lambert, Jim Lees, Rachel Levy, Catherine Logori, Alexander Lopez with JD Landscaping, Michael and Amy Losavio, Eric Lupton, Peter Malloy, Kim McGovern, Michael Mormack, Matt Murillo, John Murphy, Patrick Nash, Brian Fanouth, Alexander Rodriguez, Michael Sarti, Kevin Shower, Judy Schulz, Teresa Solano, Diane Sotittle, Paul Stern, Emma Stokes, Pamela Stone, Elizabeth Tavitt, Emilio Joel Torres, the Veluzzi Group, Nicole Vigilota, Emily Wexler, Bernadette Yeager, Anthony and Jennifer Satilla, Lisa and Michael Zobel, Marilyn and Bob Zoka, Chris Zotti. Council President Fox, that is the end of the list.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Clerk. And that list does not include, you took off any names of people who commented this evening as well, correct?
That is correct, Council President.
So we still have those letters and they'll be made part of the record, correct?
That is correct, Council President.
So just so the public understands, all of these letters will be attached as part of the minutes after the meeting, as well as a summary of the comments that were made this evening. So just so people know. So with that, I will close the public comment and we will move on to our next ordinance for, did I forget something?
Sorry, it's you're closing the hearing, not just the public comment.
Oh, right, closing the hearing. I misspoke, of course. So we're going to move on to our third ordinance for hearing. And then those of you who want to see the vote, stay tuned because we will double back and vote on all of the ordinances we've held hearings on. So Madam Clerk, could you please read the last ordinance for hearing?
Of course, Council President. The last ordinance is ordinance number 21-3232, an ordinance to amend the code Appendix A, Schedule of Fees contained in the revised general ordinances of the City of Summit.
Okay, Councilmember Little, would you like to introduce this ordinance, please? For hearing.
I would love to. I expect this one might be slightly shorter, but this is an ordinance to proposing an increase to the construction permit fees. Our permit fees go into the Construction Division Trust Fund, and the 3-year trend and forecast for that fund has been in fairly steep decline over the last few years for a number of reasons. One is that the construction that was taking place on the Celgene property was halted when the the sale of that property went through, as well as a slowdown due to the pandemic last year, and some other factors. So to maintain the health of that trust fund going forward, and to be able to cover expenses associated with it, it is necessary at this time to make an increase in the construction permit fees. And I would note that those have not been increased since 2011. So at this time, I would like to open this ordinance up for a hearing.
Sorry.
Yeah. Okay, we're getting a little slow on the mark here. Okay, so are there, so at this point, we're going to open the hearing, and I would ask for any comments from members of council. Okay, no comments. Any comments from members of the public on this ordinance? Okay, I don't see any. So with that, I'm going to close the hearing, and we will now move on to ordinances for final consideration. Madam Clerk, could you please read the first ordinance for consideration?
Of course. For consideration, ordinance number 21-3230, ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a cap bank.
Council Member Vartan, would you like to take this one, please?
Sure thing. Thank you, Council President. This ordinance allows appropriations over the cap and to establish a cap bank. The hearing on this ordinance was held earlier, and I move to adopt this ordinance.
I second it.
Okay, Madam Clerk, could we have a roll call, please?
Of course. Ms. Allen?
I just want to make sure what are we here?
We're voting on the finance ordinance to exceed the cap.
Yes.
Okay. Good to know what you're voting for.
Yes, exactly.
Ms. Hairston?
Aye.
Ms. Little?
Aye.
Mr. Naidu?
Yes.
Mr. O'Sullivan?
Aye.
Mr. Vartan?
Aye.
President Fox?
Yes. So the motion carries. The ordinance passes, and we are moving on now to capital projects. Madam Clerk, could you please read this ordinance for final consideration?
Yes. For final consideration, ordinance 21-3231, an ordinance amending Chapter 3, Police Regulations, Section 3-8, Noise Restrictions, Subsection 3-81, Noise Prohibitions, to provide for a pilot program to ban the use of gas-powered leaf blowers.
Councilmember Little, would you like to introduce this ordinance for final consideration?
Sure. As we just had this lengthy hearing and lots of public engagement and comment, I would ask that we approve this ordinance for final consideration.
Second.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, could you please have a roll call vote?
Of course. Ms. Allen?
No.
Ms. Hairston?
Aye.
Ms. Little?
Aye.
Mr. Naidu?
Aye.
Mr. O'Sullivan?
Aye.
Mr. Vartan?
Aye.
President Fox?
Aye. The motion carries. So the ordinance passes, and we'll move on to our last capital projects and community services ordinance. Madam Clerk, could you please read that title?
Of course. Ordinance for final consideration. Ordinance number 21-3232. An ordinance to amend the code, Appendix A, Schedule of Fees, contained in the revised general ordinances of the City of Summit.
Councilmember Little.
Thank you, Council President. As we just had a shorter and less involved hearing on this issue for the construction permit fees, I ask that we approve this ordinance for final consideration.
I second it.
Madam Clerk, could we have a roll call, please?
Of course. Ms. Allen?
Yes.
Ms. Hairston?
Aye.
Ms. Little,
Aye.
Mr. Naidu,
Yes.
Mr. O'Sullivan,
Aye.
Mr. Vartan,
Aye.
President Fox.
Yes. So the motion carries. And I guess we are moving on to ordinances for introduction. Does it make sense at this point? Are we in need of a 5-minute stretch and recharging of the computers? Is that a yes? My computer is down to it's about to shut off. So what I would recommend is if everyone wants to turn off their microphones and cameras for 5 minutes, don't log off because we don't know if you're going to be able to log back on, and then we'll come back in 5 minutes. Does that work?
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So our next item is, and we are moving on to ordinances for introduction. Madam Clerk, could you please read the ordinance for introduction number 7782?
Of course. Ordinances for introduction, ID number 7782. Ordinance to amend the lease agreement between Reeves Reed Arboretum, Inc. and the City of Summit.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councilmember Allen, would you like to introduce this ordinance?
Thank you, Council President. I'd like to introduce ordinance ID number 7782, which amends the lease agreement between Reeves Reed Arboretum and the City of Summit. Reeves Reed Arboretum applied for a grant to the Department of Environmental Protection Green Acres, which aims to extend accessibility of the Arboretum to the public for outdoor recreation. To qualify for the Green Acres grant, it requires that a development project secure a lease for 25 years, thereby requiring the current lease of the Arboretum to be extended to September 6, 2046. We all enjoy the sanctuary and activities of the Arboretum and that it provides for our community. And I'm looking forward to hearing this ordinance, which will take place at the next council meeting on April 20th. I move to introduce this ordinance.
I second it.
Thank you. And thank you, Councilmember Allen. And Madam Clerk, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Allen?
Yes.
Ms. Hairston?
Aye.
Ms. Little?
Aye.
Mr. Naidu?
Yes.
Mr. O'Sullivan?
Aye.
Mr. Vartan?
Aye.
President Fox?
Yes, the motion carries. So the hearing will be held on at our next meeting on, on April 20th. On that item. And now we'll be moving on to resolutions. So we have 3 finance resolutions. Councilmember Vartan, would you like to get started?
Yes, thank you, Council President. This first one is ID number 7710. This resolution is an introduction of the Special Improvement District budget. The Special Improvement District is better known as Summit Downtown. This is Summit Downtown Incorporated manages this budget, and for the 2021, the total amount is $384,978. This money comes from the tax assessment on commercial properties collected by the city and turned over to SDI, vendor fees from the farmers market, and some gift card sales and special events that bring in revenue. That money is spent on marketing and events, which promote the downtown, as we saw much earlier this evening in the presentation. The hearing for this will be at the next, not at the next council meeting, at the council meeting on May 4th. I move to adopt this resolution.
I second it.
Okay, are there any comments from members of council? Any comments from members of the public? Okay, hearing none, Madam Clerk, could you give us a roll call vote, please?
Of course. Ms. Allen?
Yes.
Ms. Hairston?
Aye.
Ms. Little?
Aye.
Mr. Naidu?
Yes.
Mr. O'Sullivan?
Aye.
Mr. Vartan?
Aye.
President Fox?
Yes, motion carries. Moving on, our next item is finance number 2. Councilmember Vartan.
Thank you, Council President. I'll have an easier time with this one, I promise. This resolution authorizes emergency temporary appropriations to the current fund budget, which is the temporary operating budget for 2021 until the 2021 municipal budget is finalized. Again, this is not an emergency, just the legal mechanism we must use in order to continue to fund the government until the budget is passed. This adds $2,327,343 to the temporary municipal operating budget, and I move to adopt this resolution.
I second it.
Are there any comments from members of council on this item? Any comments from members of the public? Okay, hearing none, Madam Clerk, could you give us another roll call vote, please?
Of course. Ms. Allen,
Yes.
Ms. Hairston,
Aye.
Ms. Little,
Aye.
Mr. Naidu,
Yes.
Mr. O'Sullivan,
Aye.
Mr. Vartan,
Aye.
President Fox.
Yes, the motion carries. Moving on to the last item on finance, Councilmember Vartan.
Thank you, Council President. This is resolution ID number 7794. This resolution outlines the City of Summit's support for state legislation S3522, which now awaits final consideration by the state Senate. This bill would separate the Public Employees Retirement System, PERS, into two parts, a state PERS for state employees and a local PERS for all other employees. For about 2 decades, municipalities and counties have made full contributions as required under the law. The state has not. Therefore, it is important to make this distinction because when analyzing the fiscal health of New Jersey's public employee pension system, the local part is in a much stronger financial position. I move to adopt this resolution.
I second it.
Are there any comments from members of council? Any comments from members of the public? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. So we're now moving on to 11 capital projects and community services resolutions. Councilmember Little, I'm just going to let you just go through them all rather than me introducing them each time for you, if that's okay.
That is fine with me. I'm sure everyone is looking forward to hearing me talk more. But and I appreciate all the people that have stayed on the call to hear the other business that we do. But our first capital projects resolution is resolution number 7711, and it's to establish the 2021 fees for operating and maintaining our sanitary sewer system. These are established every year at this time, and there is a slight increase in the fees, mostly due to more usage this year, but also to fund ongoing maintenance and capital projects. But we still, I do want to note, we still have one of the lowest priced sanitary sewer systems in all of the surrounding municipalities. So we are very proud of that. So with that, I would ask that we approve this resolution for the 2021 sewer fees.
Second.
Any comments from members of council? Any comments from members of the public? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Carry on.
Capital projects, resolution number 2 is resolution number 7612, which is to authorize the cooperative purchase of a backhoe loader for the amount of $131,465. This is to purchase a backhoe loader that will be used by our Department of Public Works. This is a piece of machinery that is used daily by our DPW crews, mostly at the transfer station, but also for road work and snow removal. And it is replacing a loader that was more than 20 years old. So it's well past its expected life. And it's a necessary piece of equipment, so that I would ask that we approve the purchase of this backhoe loader.
Second.
Are there any comments from members of council? Okay, comments from members of the public? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, and this is capital projects number 3 is resolution 7755, and this is to authorize purchase through the Morris County Cooperative Pricing Council for the Westminster Road Improvement Project, and that's curbing in the amount of $50,350. We normally put these out to bid, but this was a significant cost saving in purchasing the curbing through the Morris County Co-op, and we typically haven't done it this way, so this is a way to save the city some money on this curbing project for the Westminster Road Improvement, and I ask that we approve this resolution.
Second.
Are there any comments from members of council? Any comments from members of the public? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Go.
Thank
keep
you,
going.
Council President. Resolution number 4 is number 7772, which is to approve a temporary parklet location at Bank Street for Summit Greek Grill. Those of you who've been following along know that we did a special council meeting to approve a number of parklets and road closures for the summer. And this one is just being considered separately because Summit Greek Grill hadn't yet submitted the required paperwork at the time that we did the special meeting. So it is in the same place as it was last year. So it would just be a continuation of the parklet for Summit Greek Grill, and I ask that we approve this resolution.
Second.
Are there any comments from members of council? Any comments from members of the public? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Go ahead, Councilmember Little.
Thank you, Council President. Capital projects, resolution number 5 is number 7764, and this is to authorize the use of our public parks and fields by local exercise and fitness businesses this summer. So as many of you recall, one of the things that we did to help local businesses during the pandemic was to authorize the use of our parks and fields last summer for fitness uses. That was very successful. So this is to authorize the use again. Any businesses wishing to use the fields and parks would apply for that use through the Department of Community Programs. So I ask that we approve this resolution.
I second.
Any comments from members of council? Any comments from members of the public? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
The next capital projects resolution is number 6, number 7768, which is to accept the donation of $1,500 to the city for the Village Green bench dedication in the memory of Michael Panulo. This is a donation by Marie Adams to purchase a bench in memory of her father. So we gratefully accept this donation, and I ask that we accept this resolution.
Second.
Any comments from members of council? Any comments from members of the public? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Cap 7.
Thank you. The next capital projects resolution is number 7770, which is to authorize execution of an affordable housing deed restriction agreement at 86 Park Avenue, number 103. And this is to qualify the unit to deed restrict it as a moderate income unit, which satisfies a requirement under the Mount Laurel agreement. And I ask that we approve this resolution.
Second.
Are there any comments from members of council? Comments from members of the public? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Cap 8.
Thank you, Council President. This is resolution number 7789, which is to authorize submission of a grant application under the Association of New Jersey Environmental Commission Open Space Stewardship Grant. This is being applied for through our Environmental Commission, and the grant is to apply for funds that would help them establish a pollinator and native plant garden at the community center. So I would ask that we approve the submission of this grant application.
Second.
Are there any comments from members of council? Councilmember Vartan.
Just a question. Thank you, Council President. Did Millennium help with this grant application?
I don't know. Maybe Aaron Schrager could help us answer that question. Director Schrager?
Correct. Yes, they did.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from members of council? Any questions or comments from members of the public? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Cap 9.
We're getting close.
Getting there.
Capital Projects Resolution is number 7792, and that is to authorize the 2021 Arbor Day festivities. And that is a day where we celebrate the planting of trees on public property in the city, as we are known as the Tree City. This will be celebrated on Friday, April 23rd this year at the Summit High School. And this will be actually our 25th year as a Tree City USA. And it will be an outside, socially distanced event, but we would like to authorize festivities. And I ask that we approve this resolution.
And I second it.
Any comments from members of council? Okay, comments from members of the public? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Cap 10.
Thank you, Council President. This is resolution number 7781, and this is to appoint a Mayor's Arts Committee member. And we are very excited to appoint Deepa Whipple to the Mayor's Arts Committee. She will be a fantastic addition to the committee. And we are very excited to have her on board. So I enthusiastically ask for approval of this resolution.
Seconded.
Any comments from members of council? Comments from members of the public? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Last one, Councilmember Little.
Thank you. So capital projects resolution number 11 is number 7790, and it's to appoint the chairperson for the Summit Economic Development Advisory Committee, which we discussed earlier as one of our advisory not ad hoc committee, one of our advisory committees. And we are very happy that Tim McAloon, who is a fairly new member to the committee, is willing to step up and be the chairperson. We also want to thank the outgoing chairperson, Jonathan Betts, who was the chairperson for the first 2 years of the committee's existence. He's going to stay on the committee, which we are very grateful to him for, but he is passing the reins of the chairmanship over to Tim McAloon. And we are, again, I would like to enthusiastically offer this resolution for approval.
Seconded.
Any comments from members of council? Councilmember Vartan.
Thank you, Council President. I just want to say, I think Tim is going to do an excellent job. He's been a Summit resident for more than 25 years. He has already spoken with Marjorie, Beth, and me. He is especially passionate about the Ashwood Ave Neighborhood Business District and just speaking generally about the Economic Development Advisory Committee. As we, again, emerge from the pandemic, the questions and the issues that they're talking about are really going to be extremely important and come to the forefront as we move out of the pandemic. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Vartan. Anyone else have any comments on council? Any comments from members of the public? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So we're now moving on to administrative policies and community services. Councilmember Naidu, would you like to introduce your resolution?
Thank you very much, Council President. This resolution is relatively simple, and I think I spoke at it during our hearing on the ordinance, which is that it simply offers landscapers the opportunity, if they so choose, as voluntary, to sign up with the city, so the city can put their name in a database, and so this way we can provide them information about what our rules and regulations are and what programs and opportunities there may be for them. If they're so interested. And so that's the sum total of this resolution. I will point out, though, that in other towns, there are attempts to register landscapers. This is very different, and people should not get it confused. and people should not, just copy articles and say, well, Summit is trying to force registration and penalize. There's no penalty involved. This is voluntary. You want to do it, do it. Don't want to do it, don't do it. But people are now having the opportunity to get information. And if they want to get the information, they should sign up. With that, I'll introduce it.
I second. And may I say, Council President? Oh,
yes, go ahead.
I concur with David. I think this is a great way to engage the landscapers, especially after the dialogue tonight. And so, and to his point, there's communities that have approached it in a very different way where it's a much more punitive action. I think David and I, in crafting it, was really just about engaging the landscapers and making sure they have the right information. So I strongly support it.
Thank you, Councilmember Allen. Does anyone else have any comments? Councilmember Vartan.
I'm sorry, I just have one quick question. So I guess the question is basically, is this, are landscapers not already included in, let's say, some group of businesses that the city is already in touch with, right? Like couldn't landscapers now sign up for notifications through the city website like anybody else?
They could.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Councilmember Nigel.
I apologize. It's late in the evening. So feel like we're just talking to each other right now. Yes, landscape. Look, right now, for residents, for businesses, there's obviously a means by which you can already sign up for notifications. Go to the city's website and you can click on different buttons that give you the ability to sign on to getting news and information that is going on in the city. And I encourage everybody to do that. But now, because of the issues involved recently and because there was commentary, are landscapers aware of what's going on? How can we make sure that they are aware? We're taking one additional step in this process. But you are absolutely right, Councilman Vartan. The mechanism already existed, has existed for a long period of time. And we have said this before to businesses, and I will say it for myself. I've certainly said this. People who have an economic stake in this community should be aware of what is going on in it. If you are a regulated if you're doing business here, you should know and you should be wanting to get involved and be involved in what is going on because you have a livelihood here and we want you to be involved. Just like we had the presentation from SDI showing the interconnection between the city and SDI. That's what we want all businesses to be involved in with us. But thank you for your question. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilmember Naidu. Does anyone else have any questions or comments? And just to clarify, also, there was an article recently that was I believe, in the TAP about what Westfield was doing, which was a registration for landscapers, but it also came with fees. There is no charge for this registration. It's a way that we know how to reach out to landscapers to give them information, and it's information that will be tailored to their interests. So this is just a means of communication and a way to know, to be able to reach out to people who want to receive additional information. So with that, are there any comments from members of the public? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on. We have 3 safety and health resolutions. Councilmember Hairston, would you like to take the first one?
Thank you, Council President. I am pleased to introduce the resolution ID number 7776 to accept a donation from the Donald and Elizabeth Hulk Fund in the amount of $250. This donation was made by Heather Hulk Fern, who I believe is their daughter. And she made that donation to be utilized by the Summit Police Department for the purchase of equipment for uniformed officers. I move that this resolution be accepted.
I second.
Are there any comments from members of council? Any comments from members of the public? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Safety and health number 2, Councilmember Hairston.
Thank you, Council President. I am introducing for approval Resolution ID 7780 that will authorize the submission of the New Jersey Division of Highway Traffic Safety State and Community Highway Safety Grant application and to execute a grant agreement. This would be a standard application that we apply for every year through the help of our grant writers Millennium. And this grant application is for the pedestrian safety, and the police department will be applying for an FY 2022 state and community highway safety grant to improve pedestrian safety at targeted locations throughout the city. The police will apply for funding in the amount of $15,000, while $14,000 of this funding will go towards overtime, single officer details at targeted pedestrian crash site hotspots. And this is based on the 2020 crash data. The remaining $1,000 will be used for printed materials to promote a message of pedestrian safety in our community. I move for this resolution to be approved.
I enthusiastically second.
Are there any comments from members of council? Any comments from members of the public? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Last safety and health resolution, Councilmember Hairston.
Last safety and health, ID resolution number 7779 to, again, authorize the submission of the New Jersey Division of Highway Traffic Safety for the Pedestrian Safety Enforcement and Education Fund grant application and to execute grant agreement. Again, by Millennium, we'll be applying for this second pedestrian safety grant to improve pedestrian safety, and it was with the exact same parameters. And so I move for this grant application in the amount of $15,000, $14,000 for overtime, $1,000 for printed materials. I so move it.
Seconded.
Are there any comments from members of council? Any comments from members of the public? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. So we're now moving on to the consent agenda, and we usually take the agenda as a whole unless anyone has anything they want to pull out. Tonight, we have a new resolution that's being added from the floor on the consent agenda. It's, I believe all the members of council have received it. It's to authorize a display of purple ribbons for the American Cancer Society Relay for Life. We just received the request today. I believe it came through the mayor, but it was from students at the high school, and it is this weekend. So that's the reason that this is coming from the floor. But it is that they will be displaying purple ribbons in the downtown around on trees, and basically they will have to submit some information to the clerk's office to complete this process. But we wanted to make sure that they had the opportunity to have this purple ribbon display. So I'd like a motion to add a new resolution to the consent agenda.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, great. So Matt, can we just vote on the whole consent agenda now?
You can vote on the entire consent agenda because you amended it. You can do it right.
Okay, so do I have a motion for the consent agenda as a whole? And a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. So let's see. Now we're moving on to council members' comments and new business. Does anyone have anything they'd like to say? Councilmember Naidu.
Thank you, Council President, and I apologize. I know it's late in the evening, and I probably should have reminded us of this fact when we first started, which was that Councilman Michael Vernatico, had passed away, I think, between the time of our last meeting and this meeting, and he had honorably served in this body for a number of different years. Previous to that, he had served also in Millburn as an elected official. Many of us knew Mike and his service and his dedication to the community in various aspects of it. And so his sudden passing is certainly totally shocking to his family, and certainly one where we share their grief, and may his memory be a blessing. So with that, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Naidu. That was very well put, and I'm glad that you mentioned that. I think a lot of us were fortunate enough to work with Councilmember Vernatico and various different activities, through committees, and he was a regular presence in town, coaching, and just was part of a lot of the life of a lot of people in this community, and he will be missed. So thank you. Are there any other comments? Councilmember Hairston.
Thank you, Council President. I just want to acknowledge we received an email, and I wish I had written it down, but April is Autism Awareness Month. And so I just want to acknowledge that recognition.
Thank you for that recognition. Any other comments from members of council? Okay, so hearing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you, everyone, for your forbearance and patience and hard work on this issue tonight. And have a good evening. We made it in under midnight, so it's a victory.
Yes.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, all.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.